Chapter 24-21. Dong Lijie was sitting on the sofa in the lounge of the International Intelligence Platform Center. A makeup artist was standing in front of her, dolling her up meticulously. Seeing Yun Jian walk past her, Dong Lijie could not help but mock Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian merely glanced at her from the corner of her eyes and left with 3 words. No need. Teske, what's there to be cocky about? Just don't cry when you get eliminated. Dong Lijie rolled her eyes. Perhaps this is the girl's way of fighting. Lu Yu said sarcastically again. When she said that, there was a hint of disdain in her eyes. Before Yun Jian left, she greeted the 6 members of Team Monarch and told them that even if they were eliminated from the audition, she had other ways to get them close to the big investor. The 6 members of Team Monarch had always trusted Yun Jian. Therefore, they nodded at Yun Jian without any hesitation. The successful audition this time was Country M's international director, Milland. Milland was an internationally renowned director. He once directed a movie that sold the highest box office in the world at the time, becoming a household name in one fell swoop. He was quite famous. The location of Milland's audition was set up in an open-air plaza that had been temporarily set up. The residents nearby could also come and watch the show. Milland was sitting in the best position among the judges. There were many people who signed up for the audition this time. After all, if they were successful in the audition and participated in the movie directed by the international director, Milland, it was very likely that they would become a hit overnight. That was the dream of countless young girls and boys. The audition for the roles was done in order. Numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It went on like that. Yun Jian's number was 66. Those who were numbered had to fill out the form in advance to the judges and recite the lines of the audition for the role they chose. It was not as simple as reciting the lines. The audition candidate had to act like a qualified actor, reciting the lines and acting out the lines at the same time. Of course, everyone who came for the audition only had to recite the lines of the character they chose. The venue was filled with audition candidates. Those who were waiting for the audition were trying their best to memorize their lines so that they would not memorize the wrong lines on stage later and lose the chance to pass the audition. Even Dong Lijie, Xueqi, and the others were trying their best to memorize their lines. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was sitting on the side, covering her face with a notebook that contained her information and lines she was supposed to memorize as she closed her eyes to take a light nap. Heh, I thought she's really good. Is she planning to give up on the audition right now? Dong Lijie scoffed when she saw Yun Jian covering her face with the book, not planning to memorize her lines at all. At this moment, Xueqi walked to Yun Jian's side and asked Yun Jian excitedly, Yun Jian, what role did you choose? Yun Jian was only in a light sleep. She did not open her eyes and handed the little notebook covering her face to Xueqi. Dong Lijie and Lu Yu glanced at Xueqi and Yun Jian contemptuously and ignored them. Suddenly, they heard Xueqi speak again. Odessa. You're auditioning for the role of Odessa. The role of Odyssey was the most difficult role in this movie. That's because the role of Odessa is an international assassin. The fight scenes of the assassin in this movie can't be acted out by anyone who isn't an expert. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 24-22. But Yun Jian, this is your true character performance. Xueqi said the last sentence very softly. After saying this, Xueqi revealed her front teeth and giggled. The candidates around them were all waiting to go on stage for the audition. They were afraid that they would not be able to memorize their lines due to nervousness, so everyone was frantically trying to memorize their lines. Some of them were so nervous that they were trembling all over. Even their teeth and lips were trembling. Xueqi said the last sentence very softly. No one around them heard it, but it was heard by Dong Lijie, the T-Rex squad, and the Most Awesome squad. They were all waiting to hear what kind of character Yun Jian had chosen. What true character performance! I think she's confused us with assassins. Assassins are all about killing moves. Does she really think she's a trump card? She should look at herself in the mirror. Dong Lijie snorted disdainfully. She glanced at Yun Jian from the corner of her eyes and mocked her in a voice that only the 3 special squads could hear. Who cares if I'm an old woman? I think you haven't even memorized your lines. You should worry about yourself. Chu Xiongnan had always been on Xueqing's side. After hearing Dong Lijie's words, he looked at Dong Lijie with disdain and retorted without holding back. Old woman? Who are you calling an old woman? Dong Lijie stood up angrily. I'm talking about whoever answered. Chu Xiongnan shrugged and replied. You. Dong Lijie was angered by Chu Xiongnan words. She stood up and wanted to hit him. Number 60, please come on stage. The staff member in charge of the order of appearance shouted. The number tag on Dong Lijie's chest was number 60. Dong Lijie gave Yun Jian a provocative look before she went on stage. Who didn't know that Dong Lijie had studied acting before she joined the special squad? She was even fortunate enough to receive the guidance of a world-class acting master. Therefore, her acting skills were naturally not a problem. On stage, Dong Lijie used the fake identity that the army had made up for them to introduce herself. Then, she began her performance. The role that Dong Lijie chose was a female supporting character that didn't appear much. From his appearance, demeanor, expression, and voice, it was impossible to find a single flaw. Even Mr. Milland, who had been pulling a long face and hadn't smiled since the start of the audition, grinned and applauded. He said in English, his highest praise since the start of the audition. Good. This greatly satisfied Dong Lijie's vanity. After getting off the stage. Amazing! You're really something. As soon as Dong Lijie got off the stage, a female member of the most awesome team praised Dong Lijie. It's nothing. Dong Lijie raised her head proudly and glanced at Yun Jian with contempt. Yun Jian ignored her completely. Number 66. Please come to the stage. It was not until the first number was passed that the staff member's voice sounded again, and everyone came back to their senses. Yun Jian went on stage. The words Aidhan appeared on a big screen on the side, indicating that Yun Jian had chosen to audition for the role of Aidhan. When they saw that Yun Jian was auditioning for the role of Aidhan, everyone present was stunned. After all, the role of Aidhan was the most difficult of all the roles to audition for. Aidhan appeared more often in a movie, but Aidhan had the least lines. Every time she appeared, she had to use her eyes to convey everything. And her expression from inside out made people feel that she was a cold-blooded killer. 2 people had already tried to audition for Aidhan. The lines were the same. The scene was a battlefield filled with flames and smoke. Aidhan stepped on a large pile of corpses, raised her slightly lowered head slowly, and said to her subordinates, "Kill them all." The 2 people who auditioned for Aidhan didn't feel anything at all. Now that Yun Jian was on stage, everyone was inevitably curious. At that moment, Yun Jian was already standing in front of the judges. Everyone thought that Yun Jian would give a simple self-introduction, but who knew that Yun Jian would go on stage with her head lowered, making people feel that she was a little afraid. But when Yun Jian walked to the center of the stage, her somewhat fearful aura changed. Her red arc was slightly raised, as if she was a killer in the middle of a bloody massacre. She slowly raised her sharp eyes. That pair of red bloodshot eyes made all the judges and audience tense up in fright. That playful half-smile made everyone's hair stand on end. At this moment, the girl suddenly smoothed out that playful half-smile. She raised her head like a king, as if she was stepping on thousands of skeletons. That simple and ordinary word that made people's hearts skip a beat stood out. Kill them all. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 24-23. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. At that moment, it was as if everyone saw Aidhan walking out of the bloodthirsty skeleton film set. That cold-blooded killer who had no trace of humanity and was so cruel that it made one's hair stand on end. If it was said that when Dong Lijie finished playing the role, the world-renowned director Mr. Milland revealed a smile and applauded in front of everyone. But at this moment, when Mr. Milland saw Yun Jian's timid face when Yun Jian went on stage, he sighed and looked away, not even bothering to look at Yun Jian. At this moment, Mr. Milland's eyes were fixed on Yun Jian. His hands were tightly gripping the edge of the judges' table in front of him, and he stood up in a trembling posture. Then, when everyone was subdued by Yun Jian's gaze, Mr. Milland suddenly stood up, stepped on the judges' table, and jumped in front of Yun Jian. Using words that no one expected, he excitedly spoke to Yun Jian in English. Ever since I became a director in the entertainment industry, I have always wanted to portray a character, and Aidhan is the character that I have always wanted to portray. But after working in the entertainment industry for so many years, there has never been an actress, no, there has never been an actress, who could portray the killer in my heart so vividly with just a gaze. Please, You must play the role of Aodhan in my movie. Please. At the end of his words, Mr. Milland even bent down and said this to Yun Jian in an extremely respectful tone. This was the attitude that the respected Mr. Milland had never shown in front of anyone before. At this moment, not only the residents who came to watch the show, but also everyone who came for the audition, without exception, all stared at the stage with astonishment on their faces. Mr. Milland was an internationally renowned director. Usually, the actors that he took a fancy to were either popular in the country or worldwide. In the past, it had always been the actors who begged Mr. Milland. Today, Mr. Milland actually begged a newcomer who came out of nowhere for an audition? At this moment, everyone was stunned. How could this be? She. Dong Lijie clenched her fists and looked at the scene on the stage in shock. My Yun Jian has her own halo, unlike some people who think their acting skills are superb. Why didn't I see Director Milland begging you to play that role? Chu Ning raised her voice when she saw Dong Lijie's shocked expression, as if she was retorting mercilessly to Dong Lijie for what she had said to Yun Jian earlier. After a while, Dong Lijie's expression changed, and her face instantly paled. At the same time, the audience saw Yun Jian on the stage give Mr. Milland a polite smile and say, "It's my honor." The audition ended. There weren't many roles to audition for this time. Only Yun Jian, Dong Lijie, and a girl from the T-Rex squad named Wei Yuka were chosen. Yun Jian, Dong Lijie, and Wei Yuka were all tall and beautiful. They also had curvy figures and performed very well in the audition. Therefore, it wasn't surprising that they were chosen. As for the others, of course, it was impossible for them to be sent back to China. Lu Cheng had already thought of a countermeasure. The members of the 3 squads who weren't chosen were all sent to Mr. Milland's crew and became crew members. Before they set off, Lu Cheng called the members of the 3 squads together. The success of this mission depends on the 3 of you who are chosen. I admit that you're quite capable as killing god, but the education you received isn't as good as Wei Yuka and Dong Lijie who came back from overseas. Therefore, you have to follow their arrangements. Also, your target is the big investor of this big movie. All the information is here. This big investor is lustful, and you have to gain his trust even if you have to sacrifice your looks. Also, you have to get evidence of his drug trafficking. Top reading website, M. Chapter 24-24. Lu Cheng's words carried a tone that did not allow anyone to refute or refuse. It was not uncommon for female spies to sacrifice their bodies to complete missions. This was because when a man was immersed in a woman's fragrance, it was the easiest for a woman to get information out of him. Not to mention a lecherous person like that big investor. This big investor had infiltrated almost the entire entertainment industry. Moreover, this big investor was the culprit behind the drug trafficking that led the young girls to their downfall. Female spies were willing to sell their bodies to complete missions like this, even if their sacrifice was not known to the world. There were many such selfless contributions. However, there were no officers like Lu Cheng, who directly asked Yun Jian and the other 2 selected girls to complete the mission even if they had to sell their bodies and sacrifice their bodies. Usually, it was voluntary and never forced. Here, it must be mentioned that the soldiers and spies who sacrificed themselves for the country were the greatest beings in the world. They might not be as dazzling as the celebrities in the entertainment industry, or they might not have the same beautiful appearance as the celebrities in the entertainment industry. However, without them, the ground under your feet would be a smoky battlefield. Not to mention the celebrities in the entertainment industry. During times of war, who cared whether you were good-looking or not? Only those who could survive were kings. Officer Lu. Must we sell our bodies? Can we use other methods to complete the mission? After hearing Lu Cheng's last sentence, even Dong Lijie fell silent. She hesitated for a long time before stammering out what she wanted to say. Unless you have the ability to earn the trust of this big investor without selling your body, and obtain evidence of his drug trafficking. Lu Cheng said without allowing anyone to refute. To Lu Cheng, being able to complete the mission was the most important thing. In this aspect, he was completely different from Good Yun Jian and the other officers. If it were other officers, they would definitely let the members of the 3 teams complete the mission as much as possible while ensuring their own safety. Yes, Officer Lu, I will definitely obey and complete the mission. Dong Lijie clenched her fists. A trace of tears welled up in the corner of her eyes, but she said something against her will. Although Dong Lijie had targeted Yun Jian before, she was only a woman after all. Choosing to give up one's innocence to complete a mission was a devastating blow to anyone. All right, other than the three of them who passed the audition, the rest of you will assist the three of them from the side. After the three of them join the cast tomorrow, you will be working with them as crew members. After Lu Cheng finished speaking, he turned around and left without waiting for anyone to react. Yun Jian blinked and didn't take Lu Cheng's word seriously. If it was in the past, Dong Lijie would definitely take the opportunity to mock Yun Jian after Lu Cheng told her to listen to his and Wei Yuka's arrangements. But today, Dong Lijie left dejectedly. At midnight, on the roof of a building that was dozens of stories high, Dong Lijie stood there, enjoying the cool breeze, as if she was waiting for someone. Not long after, a tall and handsome figure appeared here. "Captain, you're here." Dong Lijie turned around and looked at Xueqi. Although Xueqi did not like what he said to Team Monarch, he was still very kind to his teammates. "Lijie, why are you looking for me so late at night?" Xueqi asked. "Captain, Dong Lijie lowered her head and was silent for 2 seconds. In the next second, she suddenly walked up and hugged Xueqi's chest. She couldn't hold back her tears as they flowed down her face. "Captain, I like you. If you want me to give my first time to someone else, I can't do it. Captain, can I beg you? Just once. Just one night, I won't pester you. Please." She was prepared to sacrifice herself for the mission. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 24-25. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Dong Lijie suddenly jumped into his arms. Xueqi's heart skipped a beat and he did not think of hugging her back immediately. However, when he heard Dong Lijie's words, Zhu Jian's heart, which had already skipped a beat, instantly froze. "Lijie, are you ready to sacrifice yourself?" Xueqi could not bring himself to say the last 2 words. "Captain, please don't say it. As special forces, we should bring those bad guys to justice. Since I'm in this line of work, I won't hesitate to sacrifice myself for the country." Although Dong Lijie looked down on some of the special forces in the country, and even Yun Jian's Team Monarch, she was different from Lu Cheng. But she was definitely different from Lu Cheng. She was a patriotic person. After wiping away her tears, Dong Lijie suddenly muttered to herself in a sarcastic tone. "Haha, haha, haha, haha. Slaying God and the girl from T-Rex Squad are not suitable. I'll take this honor alone. Hee, the 2 of them are useless." When Dong Lijie said that, she was extremely unwilling. However, she still made up her mind. If there was a sacrifice, she would be the only one. When she thought about how Yun Jian already had 2 adorable children. Yes, that was right. A woman like her who was not suitable to be a Special Forces soldier was not qualified to complete this mission. Therefore, the only person who was qualified to complete this mission was her, Dong Lijie. Xueqi didn't know why he hugged Dong Lijie back. He did not like Dong Lijie, but he could not bear to reject her request. Or maybe it was because Dong Lijie was already with him when he first created the most awesome squad. However, that was no longer important. The next morning, Yun Jian woke up early. There was a gym on the first floor of the International Intelligence Platform building that specialized in fitness equipment. Yun Jian did not go out for a morning run. Instead, she went to the gym for an hour. When it was 6:30, everyone gathered at the entrance. The group immediately headed to the set. The set had just started filming. Since the actors had already been chosen, the set would usually be set up 2 seconds before the start of the shoot. Especially for some of the more difficult moves in the drama, the director would hire professionals to teach the actors how to complete those moves. When Yun Jian and the other 2 arrived, Mr. Milland had not yet arrived. "Are you all the new actors who auditioned yesterday? Let's gather over there," a staff member said to Yun Jian and the other 2 after glancing at Yun Jian and the other 2. Yun Jian and the other 2 nodded and walked over. The set was already covered with actors. In this big movie, other than the female lead and male lead, the rest of the roles were all played by newcomers. Therefore, this place was already filled with people who had auditioned. As for the female lead and male lead, they were both world-famous movie stars. They would only appear when they were needed, and the treatment they received was naturally not something these newcomers could compare to. Yun Jian, Wei Yuka, and Dong Lijia waited for a while before they saw Mr. Milland walking in from outside the set. Next to Mr. Milland was a good-looking woman with heavy makeup and a very handsome man who was enough to make girls chase and adore him. This woman was the female lead of this big movie, called Xueqi. And this handsome man is the male lead of this big movie, named Lu Junyu. Lu Junyu is a mixed race, so there is no sense of disharmony when he acts as the male lead and cooperates with M Country's movie star Xueqi. Top reading website, M. Chapter 24-26. Page 1/1. Only the female lead, Xueqi, and the male lead Lu Junyu, could walk side by side with Mr. Milland. The two of them had a resounding status in the international entertainment circle and had their own fan bases. And in the entertainment circle, the difference in status was rather obvious. Famous actors sat in nanny vans and had assistants and managers waiting on them one after another. But if it was a simple extra, they wouldn't be so particular. When eating, they would take a lunchbox and sit on the stairs with it. This was already considered extremely good. This was the difference in treatment. There was no reason, this was the way of the world. At this moment, Mr. Milland, Xueqi and Lu Junyu were walking towards them. The surrounding people didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Mr. Milland, you said that during the audition yesterday, you chose a new actor whose acting was better than mine. Who is that person? I really want to meet her. Just as the three of them were about to walk past the crowd, Xueqi suddenly spoke. Xueqi was an international film empress. She had once starred in a big movie called Women Can Also Be Heroes. Because of her outstanding acting skills, coupled with the domineering aura of a queen that was difficult for outsiders to portray, she became the world's second box office at that time. This also made Xueqi a film empress and gained a large number of fans. That was why Milland compared Yun Jian's performance yesterday to the movie Xueqi starred in back then, which was a queen's dominance that was difficult for outsiders to portray. Look, it's her. After hearing Xueqi's words, Mr. Milland pointed at Yun Jian standing there. Then, he brought Xueqi and Lu Junyu over to Yun Jian. Fun, the movie you starred in back then. There really aren't many people in the world who can surpass you. But the exquisite acting skills that this young lady displayed yesterday, you can't compare. Mr. Milland said. Speaking of this, Mr. Milland looked at Yun Jian with an appreciative expression, then said, Yun Jian, Mr. Milland said. Fun, I plan to change your female lead situation and increase Audrey's appearance. Because Audrey is a character that I've been chasing for my entire life. I want someone to portray her. When Mr. Milland said this, he did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. However, anyone who was smart could tell that when Xueqi heard Mr. Milland's words, she glared fiercely at Yun Jian. His gaze was so sharp that it seemed like he wanted to kill someone. Is that so? As long as you're happy, Mr. Milland. Xueqi stared at Yun Jian and gritted her teeth as she said this in front of everyone. However, the onlookers could tell that Xueqi was bearing a grudge against Yun Jian. Xueqi was an international movie star. Yun Jian was targeted by her today. They were afraid that she would not be able to bear the consequences in the future. Mr. Milland, can you please tell me why you are so obsessed with the profession of Audrey? I mean the profession of professional assassin? Lu Junyu asked after listening to Mr. Milland's words. This question attracted the attention of all the people around him. Dong Lijia, Wei Yuka, and all the new actors who were selected as supporting roles yesterday all focused their attention on Mr. Milland's face. Everyone wanted to know why Mr. Milland cared so much about Audrey's identity as a professional assassin. In fact, it's not worth mentioning. After being asked, Mr. Milland shook his head and showed a bitter smile. After laughing, he said, My mother was a professional assassin. After she fell in love with my father, she gave birth to me. However, before I was 3 years old, she was killed by the assassins sent by her organization. She was said to have betrayed the organization. As soon as these words came out, the people around all stared in horror. Oh my God, Mr. Milland, your mother was a professional assassin. Xueqi couldn't help but put her hands with red nails to her mouth and exclaimed. But just as everyone present listened to Mr. Milland's words in disbelief and froze on the spot, a light but beautiful female voice that was enough to make everyone's pupils widen suddenly sounded. Let's count the professional assassins who were killed because they fell in love with others. Mr. Milland, your mother was Mrs. Fanny, the third female assassin on the International Assassin List 20 years ago. Top reading website, M. Chapter 24-27. Madame Fanny was one of the first female assassins to make it to the top 10 of the assassin rankings in the last century. Since ancient times, there were very few women on the internationally renowned assassin rankings. The status of women was also quite low. And Madame Fanny was one of the first female assassins to make it to the top 10 of the assassin rankings in the last world. Madame Fanny was very powerful. Yun Jian had heard a lot about Madame Fanny before she started to carry out missions. Moreover, there were rumors that Madame Fanny had a child with an ordinary man. That child was the famous Mr. Milland in the entertainment industry. Yun Jian had heard about these things when she was in the Hun organization. In addition, she was an insider herself, so it was not surprising that she knew about these things. Now that she heard Mr. Milland admit that his mother was a female assassin, she was even more certain of this relationship. Xueqi had just put her red fingernails to her mouth. When she heard that Mr. Milland's mother was a female assassin, just like those female assassins in movies, she covered her mouth in shock and horror. What were rich and famous people most afraid of? Being assassinated the most. And professional assassins were such people. So Xueqi trembled a little when she heard this. Not only Xueqi trembled, but the people around her also trembled violently. But at this moment, everyone heard Yun Jian's words again. What are you talking about? How can Mr. Milland's mother be the Madame Fanny you're talking about? Mr. Milland's mother has been dead for so many years. You're just a new actor, understand? Unlike when she heard that Mr. Milland's mother was a professional assassin, Xueqi was stunned when she heard Yun Jian's words. Then, she immediately refuted her with the corresponding words. This newcomer not only stole her appearance rate in the show, but also used such unrealistic words to attract the attention of everyone present. It must be known that a character in a movie or TV series would only be seen by viewers if they had the highest appearance rate. Only then would they be more popular and liked by more people. For actors, the most intolerable thing was to reduce their appearance rate in the show. Lu Junyu twitched the corners of his mouth and revealed a graceful smile. Then he looked at Yun Jian and said, "Little girl, we're not acting right now, so don't talk nonsense. I just heard from Mr. Milland that you're so young, but you're already able to control a character like Odyssey. You're really amazing. You should go over there and memorize your lines." Lu Junyu also thought that Yun Jian wanted to make her presence known in front of Mr. Milland, so that Mr. Milland could give her more scenes in the film and better show herself in front of the audience. However, Lu Junyu and Xueqi, including Dong Lijie and Wei Yuka, who were sitting not far away, thought that Yun Jian's words were nonsense. Mr. Mir suddenly studied Yun Jian with his deep gaze. After a moment of silence, he finally reacted and exclaimed in surprise, "You're right, Yun Jian. How did you know? My mother was Madame Fanny." As soon as these words fell, everyone present looked at this seemingly ordinary girl. There was no shortage of beautiful girls and women on the set. Although Yun Jian was beautiful, everyone's aesthetic was different. A beautiful person would always have people who liked her and people who didn't. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fiercely sizing up Yun Jian. Because of Mr. Milland's words, everyone present was stunned. Mr. Milland. No, the Madame Fanny she mentioned, is really your mother? A trace of viciousness flashed across Xueqi's beautiful face. She glanced sideways at Yun Jian and said in a daze, "Yes, it's absolutely true." Mr. Milland nodded. After that, he didn't even look at Xueqi. He turned to look at Yun Jian and said excitedly, "How did you know about this? There aren't many people who know that my mother is Madame Fanny." As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Yun Jian. They thought that Yun Jian would stammer and leave Mr. Milland in suspense. They thought that Yun Jian deliberately found out these things from some unorthodox ways, so that she could make her presence felt in front of Mr. Milland. But in the next moment, the beautiful voice that came from Yun Jian's throat made everyone present widen their eyes in horror. "Not only do I know that your mother is Madame Fanny, I also know the assassin organization that paid a lot of money to kill your mother. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 24-28. Page 1/1. As soon as Yun Jian finished, Xueqi exclaimed in shock, "How do you know an assassin organization?" Dong Lijie and Wei Yuka also wanted to know the answer to this question. Yun Jian was just a member of Team Monarch in the military. Even if she exaggerated, Yun Jian was just a member of the special forces who graduated from a domestic military school. At most, she was the strongest in Team Monarch. How could she know the assassin organization that killed Mr. Millen's mother? In other words, how could Yun Jian have anything to do with an assassin organization? At that moment, even the international best actress Xueqi threw away her haughty demeanor in front of outsiders as her face turned pale. Regardless of whether Yun Jian was telling the truth or not, the fact that Yun Jian dared to say something like that in the past meant that she had something on her. Mr. Milland, there are a lot of flies around here. Could you invite me to your office? There are some things that we can discuss in detail. Xueqi's face was filled with shock. This time, the male lead Lu Junyu was equally shocked as he looked at Yun Jian. Dong Lijie, Wei Yuka, and everyone else were staring at Yun Jian. Yun Jian suddenly stopped talking and gestured to Mr. Milland. All right. Please come to my office and we can talk about it in detail. There are indeed a lot of flies around here. I'll buy a bottle of bug repellent in a few days to drive them all away. Young lady, please. Mr. Milland bowed respectfully and invited Yun Jian in front of everyone. Everyone was shocked by Mr. Milland's action. He was an internationally renowned director who had once led a movie that broke the record for the highest box office sales in the world at that time. Legend had it that anyone he supported would become popular, and any international best actor or actress would have to bow down to him. Mr. Miran. He was actually bowing to a little girl who was not even 20 years old. By the time everyone reacted, Yun Jian had already walked far away with Mr. Milland. Even Xueqi and Lu Junyu, who were the female lead of this big movie, were given the cold shoulder. Xueqi stomped her feet angrily. She seduced the director on her first day on the set. Vixen. She has the ability to request to enter the director's office in front of everyone. Do you have the ability to do so? Who knows? Maybe one day she'll rely on this to become the female lead. Shoo, lower your voice. Our best actress Xueqi is still here. Don't let anyone hear you. Xueqi's face turned even paler as she listened to the chatter. She clenched her fists so hard that her fingers dug into her palms until her knuckles turned white. In the corner, Dong Lijie and Wei Yuka stared blankly at Yun Jian and Mr. Milland as they walked away. They were not stupid. They should have realized that Yun Jian had caught Mr. Milland's weakness by doing this. In this way, she was one step closer to her target, the big investor. When Yun Jian walked out of Mr. Milland's office, she noticed that a lot of people were pointing at her, but she didn't care at all. She told Mr. Milland which assassin organization had killed his mother in exchange. At the same time, Mr. Milland also told Yun Jian about the whereabouts of the big investor. However, whether it was the people in the set or not, they all thought that Yun Jian had entered Mr. Milland's office to do something shady. Of course, this was exactly what Yun Jian wanted. Because when people thought so, the real content of her conversation with Mr. Milland in the room would not be noticed. 2 days passed peacefully. During these 2 days, something new happened, so Yun Jian's feat that day was gradually forgotten. On the morning of the 3rd day, a professional assassin who was hired by Mr. Miran for the sake of making Alderman's character more realistic came to the set as well. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 24-29. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. At this moment, the remaining members of the 3 teams, Zhu Ao, Lu Yu, Tian Shuai, Chu Ning, and Chu Xiangnan had also joined the set. However, the pitiful thing was that Chu Ning and the rest had to do logistics work after joining the crew. For example, when they had to move heavy and large objects for filming, Chu Ning and the rest would do it. To put it bluntly, they were doing manual labor. That's right, you're right. Yun Jian had just arrived at the set when she saw a middle-aged man standing behind Xueqi. He reached his hand out from Xueqi's back and taught Xueqi the moves over and over again. However, anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell that the middle-aged man had reached under Xueqi's arm and was holding Xueqi's wrist from behind. His arm was touching Xueqi's chest from time to time. The middle-aged man's lower body was also sticking close to Xueqi's back from time to time. His posture was extremely ambiguous. That's our best actress Xueqi indeed. She's already acquainted with a professional hitman. Wouldn't he have another backer in the industry in the future? This professional hitman is someone who kills without batting an eyelid. If anyone dares to offend our best actress Xueqi in the future, they'd better watch out for their own throats. The surrounding people started to talk again. Needless to say, The middle-aged man was the professional hitman hired by Mr. Milan to teach Yun Jian the killer moves. Yun Jian could tell with a glance. The middle-aged man was indeed teaching Xueqi the killer moves. Every move was fatal. However, the middle-aged man was still a little lacking in experience. To put it bluntly, he was not skilled enough. Moreover, Yun Jian could not tell the identity of the middle-aged man. From this she could tell. Yun Jian blinked and did not pay much attention to it. Nan, this is the girl you wanted to teach. The filming period has been shortened. Can you teach her some simple killer moves in 3 days? I'll pay you the reward money according to the price we agreed on earlier. At this moment, Mr. Milan appeared. He stood in front of everyone and pointed at Yun Jian to the middle-aged man. At this time, the middle-aged man recovered from teaching Xueqi. Isn't this the one I want to teach? He asked, pointing to Xueqi. Nan was the code name of this professional assassin. His strength was not ranked in the assassin world. At most, he was a low-level assassin. Of course not. She's the female lead of our drama. Someone replied on behalf of Mr. Milan. Hearing this, Nan, who was already in his 40s and had a cold expression, raised his head and cast a sidelong glance at Xueqi. Obviously, the people who thought that Nan was taking advantage of Xueqi immediately reacted. Did Xueqi lie to Monin and tell him that he was going to teach him? In fact, Xueqi deliberately touched Nan's chest but in order to make others think that she was the best actress and that any man would fall head over heels for her. Nan was probably the kind of person who was not interested in ordinary things. He did not bother to avoid Xueqi's actions. Although Nan was not particularly strong in the assassin world, it was not hard to tell that he was quite good-looking when he was young from his exquisite facial features. Hearing that Xueqi was not the person he was going to teach, Nan did not bother to say anything unpleasant. He walked up to Yun Jian and said to Yun Jian just like he did to Xueqi, "Please let me touch your wrist and check your bones. I won't touch your hand with your clothes on." There were taboos between men and women. Yun Jian did not argue and reached out her hand. Seeing this, the people around them felt that the novelty was gone because they had seen the sequence of Nan's killer moves from Xueqi and dispersed. Dong Lijia, Wei Yuka, and the members of the other 3 teams were also about to disperse. Just as the crowd was about to disperse, Nan, who had checked Yun Jian's bones through the thick clothes, suddenly changed his usual nonchalant expression. He looked up at Yun Jian right in front of everyone and exclaimed in shock, "What's wrong with you? Your bones don't look like what an ordinary person should have. Just by looking at your bones. Young lady, have you been an assassin or a secret agent before? To be honest, I don't think I'm qualified to teach you anything." Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2430. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. At this point, Nan himself was stunned for a moment. One could tell a person's talent from their bones. Anyone who knew the ropes would be able to tell if a person was suitable for martial arts. As the saying went, a person's success was determined by their hard work. But before that, one could not forget one thing. Hard work could turn a useless person into a genius. But when a group of hard-working geniuses were competing to see who was stronger, talent would determine whether a person could shake off those hard-working geniuses and climb to the throne of the strongest. Not only did Nan realize Yun Jian's talent from her bones, but he could also tell that she was definitely a martial artist. And to be able to train her bones to such an extent, she must have been an assassin. An assassin or a secret agent? How old is she? She's still in school, isn't she? Xueqi would never believe that Yun Jian was such a terrifying presence. Especially when she heard Nan's last sentence, "I don't think I have the right to teach you anything." Xueqi was not the only one who was shocked. Even Lu Junyu, Dong Lijia, Wei Yuka, and the members of the other 3 teams, including Mr. Milan, who was a heavy personality on the set, were all stunned. Everyone's emotions rose to the highest point in an instant. No wonder you acted so well during the audition. Could it be that you are a professional assassin? Mr. Milan exclaimed to Yun Jian in front of everyone. The exclamation piqued everyone's interest, but to the members of the 3 teams, especially Dong Lijia and her team, they felt like strangling Yun Jian to death. That big investor was a shrewd person. Although Yun Jian did not reveal her identity as a spy, There was no difference between revealing her strength and revealing her identity as a spy. She must be crazy. Other than professional assassins or secret agents, I think people who learn martial arts should also have such a unique bone structure. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Assassin. My name is Xueqi, the 39th generation of martial arts from Z country. Yun Jian said in front of everyone when everyone thought that she was related to the assassin. Xueqi was a fake identity that the army made up for Yun Jian. As for the 39th generation of martial arts from Z country, this identity was also made up by Yun Jian. Haha, so you are the martial arts heir from Z country. No wonder you have such a unique bone structure. But I think you don't need my guidance with your strength. Mr. Milland, this mission is cancelled. Emonen goodbye. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Emonen cupped his fist and Yun Jian translation. Emo Yun Jian, and left. At this moment, the crowd from the crowd realized that Yun Jian was not a professional assassin or secret agent. Yun Jian's about Yun Jian was his translation. About was is? Is. But a professional assassin and a martial arts heir gave people a feeling that they were not on the same level. One killed people as a profession, the other did not kill people. The farce ended just like that. In the warehouse of the crew, Dong Lijie called Yun Jian here on behalf of the members of the most awesome team. She gave Yun Jian a harsh scolding, saying that she could not complete the mission with such a high profile. But Yun Jian was too lazy to listen to half of it. She turned and left the warehouse. Just as Yun Jian left the warehouse of the crew, a young girl walked towards her. The young girl lowered her head, thinking about something. When she walked towards Yun Jian, she almost bumped into Yun Jian. Yun Jian avoided her. The young girl steadied herself and looked up at Yun Jian with trembling hands. I'm sorry. But when she looked up, the young girl was stunned. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2431. You are. When the girl saw Yun Jian's face, she was completely dumbfounded. She looked at Yun Jian, raised her hand in disbelief, and placed it on Yun Jian's hand. Yun Jian frowned slightly, not knowing why the girl was doing this. You're still slacking off here. Go to work. Do you want to be caught and sent to serve customers? The boss gave you a chance to work for the crew. It's already a great favor. If you want to die, you should die as soon as possible. Trash like you, even if you were sent to serve customers, they wouldn't want you. The moment the girl saw Yun Jian, her hands and body trembled violently. Immediately, a burly woman walked over, grabbed the girl's ear, and pulled her to the warehouse. The woman and the girl looked like they were from Z country, and they spoke Z country's language, but it was unknown why they were helping in M country. The moment the woman pulled the girl to the warehouse, she turned her head and stared at Yun Jian with teary eyes. Only when she was pulled into the warehouse did the girl look away. Yun Jian didn't remember knowing this girl. She also didn't remember seeing such a person. The girl was very thin, so thin that she was just skin and bones. She was even thinner than Yun Jian when she was reborn into this body. One look and one could tell that she was underdeveloped. Just from her appearance, one couldn't tell the girl's age. But the girl's face was dark, and it could be seen that the girl's face was smeared with a lot of dirty things, seemingly to cover up her original appearance. Yun Jian blinked. She didn't know why, but when she saw the girl, her heart twitched violently. Shaking her head, Yun Jian left the warehouse. In the afternoon, Xueqi finished filming a scene in which she was the female lead. She sat under a sun umbrella and leisurely sipped the milk tea that her assistant had personally brought to her mouth. It was a phenomenon that movie stars in the entertainment industry put on airs, and it was even worse than what the real media exposed. It was just that the normal media wouldn't expose it. Even if the media exposed it, it would be because of the hype. After all, she was just a small reporter. It was impossible for her to fight with someone with a powerful background. At this time, Yun Jian was sitting on a bench. She saw someone in front of her blocking her view of the sun and looked up. She saw the young girl she had met in the warehouse this morning. She lowered her head and swept the floor. Seeing that there was no one around, she handed a small piece of paper to Yun Jian and ran away while sweeping. Yun Jian flipped it open and saw a line of delicate and small handwriting on the note. Let's meet at the warehouse at 5. I have something important to tell you. After reading it, Yun Jian tore up the note and pretended that nothing had happened. Xueqi happened to see this scene from afar. She asked her assistant to move milk tea away and narrowed her eyes in thought. 5 in the afternoon. Yun Jian went to the warehouse as promised. As soon as Yun Jian went to the warehouse, Xueqi came up with a plan to lure most of the crew to the warehouse. At this moment, Yun Jian had already met the young girl. As soon as she met the young girl looked at Yun Jian and asked her, "Who are you?" Her voice was a little timid and scared. "Who are you?" Yun Jian asked back, her tone not showing any weakness. It was only when the girl heard the question that she exhaled loudly and said, "You're right. My name is Yun Jian. I'm you. No, I should say that your body was originally mine. I'm the real Yun Jian." Please remember the domain name of this book. .com. Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website. .com. Chapter 2432. At this point, the girl paused and glanced at Yun Jian with a fearful and timid gaze. When she saw Yun Jian's nonchalant expression that did not seem to be affected by anything, the girl lowered her head again, afraid that Yun Jian would misunderstand her, and quickly spoke up. "But why, you don't have to be afraid. I am not here to snatch your body because it's yours. I've only borrowed it for a period of time." The girl looked up timidly, not daring to look at Yun Jian's reaction. Unlike Si Luo's timidity, the girl's timidity came from the depths of her soul. It was a timidity that stemmed from her own cowardice and fear of being bullied. It was not something an outsider could imitate. "Speak clearly." Yun Jian's brows furrowed slightly at the girl's words. She remained expressionless as she spoke. The young girl suddenly lowered her head again. She intertwined her hands together and organized her words for a while before she could clearly say what she wanted to say. "That is, someone told me that the body was originally yours, that you were from another world, and that you were supposed to grow up peacefully after coming to Earth. That person also told me that I'm just a puppet created by someone to harm you. I'm an existence that cannot be tolerated by the heavens and earth. Now that you've returned to your own body, The girl lowered her head again at the end of her sentence. Not only was she timid, she was also very honest. She told Yun Jian everything. However, at the end of her sentence, the girl lowered her head as if she was recalling something terrifying. I also feel that I shouldn't be living in this world. They're all so scary. I didn't do anything, but they kept hitting me and even dragged me to the toilet. They kept hitting me. They even said that I seduced someone when I didn't." The girl's words made Yun Jian's gaze pause. Yun Jian understood everything now. When she was sent to Earth by CE 1,000 years ago, she should have been Qin Yiru's daughter and should have grown up peacefully. However, someone had created this girl and sent Yun Jian's soul into the body of slaying God. To put it bluntly, this young girl was an existence that the heavens and earth could not tolerate. She did not even have her own physical body. Moreover, even if she had her own physical body, she would not be able to survive in this world due to her cowardice. She had defied the heavens and was created as a puppet. An existence that was not recognized by the world. "Raise your head." Just as the young girl was about to crouch down due to fear and cowardice, Yun Jian's icy voice suddenly rang out. Hearing Yun Jian's words, the girl raised her head in fear. At that moment, Yun Jian reached out and pinched the girl's chin. "Shouldn't you be living in this world? Then whose body is yours now?" "The person who told me everything said that the owner of this body was a little beggar. She is already dead." The young girl's chin was pinched by Yun Jian. She looked into Yun Jian's sharp eyes and spoke in a trembling voice. "Then she's yours. Even if you were created and were an existence that the heavens and earth could not tolerate, since you've survived and have a physical body, you are you. Raise your head and tell me your name now." Yun Jian's words were like a bolt of lightning that stunned the girl. She tried her best to make her voice sound like a normal person. "My name now is Yixi. I'm Yixi." After hearing the girl's words, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Her lips curled into a red arc, but she did not loosen her grip on the girl's chin. In the warehouse that was bathed in the afterglow of the setting sun, Yun Jian lifted Yixi's chin with her hand. She flashed a faint smile that ignited Yixi's hope for life. Then, just as Yixi was mesmerized, she spoke. "From today onwards, you, Yixi, are under my, Yun Jian's protection. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2433. Yixi was the original little beggar's name after she was reborn into this little beggar's body after being dragged into the toilet by Lin Mingyu and the others in Xinjiang town and beaten up. Yiji's current body was not bad looking at all. This could be seen from her delicate facial features. However, Yiji's current body was obviously underdeveloped. In addition, Yiji painted her face black like charcoal as if to cover up her original beauty, so she looked very ordinary. The name Yun Jian, whether it was in the past or in the future, was Yun Jian's own name. When Yiji heard Yun Jian's words, she raised her head. Her face was still trembling, but she stared into Yun Jian's eyes as if Yun Jian was her savior. Can you really protect me? The people on this earth are so scary. They used to bully me in school, and now here, that bad woman keeps hitting me. She even used a ruler to hit my hand. As she spoke, Yiji reached out her trembling hands that had been tightly clenched. Yun Jian saw that Yiji's fair palm that was extended to her with a trembling hand was swollen and bloody from the beating. From today onwards, no one will dare to hit you. I'll protect you. Also, tell me who the person who told you everything is. Yun Jian put down her hand that was pinching Yiji's chin and asked. She did not forget that it was someone who told her everything that Yiji had said. Of course, Yiji was just timid and weak. She was not stupid. He said his name was Yuan Xing. He told me that if I had the chance to see you, I would tell you everything. Although Yiji was still a little afraid of Yun Jian, she suppressed the fear that came from the depths of her soul and answered Yun Jian's question. Did he say anything else? Yun Jian asked again. No. Yiji shook her head. Da. At this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard from outside the warehouse. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She pulled Yiji over and whispered something into her ear. Yiji trembled as she listened to Yun Jian's words. She nodded and ran to the back door of the warehouse. Bang! The front door of the warehouse was quickly opened. The movie queen, Xueqi, rushed into the warehouse with a large group of people. When she saw that there was only Yun Jian in the warehouse, Xueqi was stunned. Then she rolled her eyes and said, I clearly saw 2 big rats enter the warehouse. I'm afraid that the clothes in the warehouse have been eaten by the rats. Everyone, please look carefully. The filming schedule is tight. If the props are eaten by the rats, it will be troublesome. Xueqi glanced sideways at Yun Jian as she spoke. Of course, this was just a random excuse that Xueqi came up with. Her purpose was to bring people over to catch Yun Jian talking to that young girl, but she didn't expect that young girl to slip away so quickly. I came to the warehouse to get the costume that I need to change into. I didn't see any rats. You must have seen wrongly. Yun Jian glanced sideways at Xueqi. She reached out to take a set of clothes from the warehouse, turned around, and left. Xueqi led people to search the warehouse but couldn't find anyone. In the end, she could only leave reluctantly. Yiji, who had been running out of the warehouse, felt her heart beating wildly. Just now, Yun Jian told her that someone had brought people to catch the 2 of them for a private meeting. Yun Jian also said that she had to stay on set and asked her to go back to her original place. After Yun Jian was done with her work, she would take her away. Yiji ran all the way out of the warehouse and kept looking behind her. As she stared and stared, even Yiji herself did not notice that she had accidentally bumped into a sturdy chest. Yiji was so scared that her face turned green. Just as she was about to say sorry, she saw a tall man wearing a ghost mask. It's you. I found her. Are you here to see her? I'll take you to her. When Yiji saw him, she happily reached out to pull the tall man wearing the ghost mask. The man was 183 meters tall. Yiji's height only reached his shoulders. The tall man wearing the ghost mask was the Yuan Li that Yiji mentioned. He was the man who told Yiji the truth that Yun Jian didn't know. Yiji thought that Yuan Li was here to see Yun Jian, so she reached out to pull him and wanted to go back to Yun Jian. Just as she grabbed Yuan Xian's hand and was about to bring him to Yun Jian, Yuan Xian, who was wearing a ghost mask, suddenly spoke. His mellow voice was addictive. I'm here to see you. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2434. When Yiji left Yun Jian's current body and was reborn into this little beggar's body in Xinjiang town, she was so frightened by her surroundings that she hugged her knees and trembled. At that time, Yiji was caught and sent to the brothel. She was not a prostitute but a laborer. In the words of the regular customers of the brothel, Yiji was so skinny that they did not even want to look at her. They had to scram to the backyard to do the hard work. Yi did not say anything and worked very diligently. Coincidentally, the brothel owner did not have enough expenses for those few weeks, so he sold Yi to Sister Lu. Sister Lu was the middle-aged woman that Yunjian had seen pulling Yi's ear and scolding her for not working and being lazy. Coincidentally, Mr. Millen's big production team had started filming. Sister Lu had some influence in the production team, so the task of finding people to help backstage fell to Sister Lu. Sister Lu caught Yi to the production team and made her do 3 people's worth of work. Sister Lu earned 3 people's worth of money from it. Ever since she was reborn into this little beggar's body, Yuan Xing had been telling her everything she did not understand, including telling Yi to tell Yunjian the truth when she met Yunjian. These were all things that Yuan Xing had told Yi before. However, Yuan Xing only told Yi everything she wanted to know. Even when he saw Yi getting beaten up by Sister Lu and being bullied by others, Yuan Xing would only stand aside and ignore them. Yuan Xing was just uninterested and could not be bothered with anything that he did not think was important. Looking for me? Yi was stunned when she heard Yuan Xing's words. Then, she nodded. Give this letter to her. Tell her to come here after reading it. Everything that she and the Immortal Lord want to know is there. Yuan Xing took out an envelope and handed it to Yi before turning to leave. Yi took the envelope and flipped through it twice. Just as Yi was about to open it out of curiosity, Yuan Xing, who was about to leave, suddenly stopped and turned around. He said in his usual indifferent tone, "Don't open it." Yi's hand trembled in fright at the sudden sound, and the envelope in her hand fell to the ground. Yi bent down to pick it up. Oh! She was wrong. She was just a puppet. She shouldn't have known so much. After picking up the envelope from the ground, Yi turned to leave. At this moment, Yuan Xing, who was about to leave, stopped her. Wait a minute. When Yi turned around, Yuan Xing was already in front of her. A plastic bag of sugar-coated haws appeared out of nowhere. Yuan Jin handed it to Yi. This is for you. The moment she turned around, Yi felt a little disappointed. She was just a puppet. It was enough for her to live in this world. However, when she saw her favorite candied haws, Yi's eyes became moist. She was originally happy to see Yuan Jin, but now, Yi learned from him and took the candied haws indifferently and said, "I'm sorry." "Thank you." His words were extremely unfamiliar. After saying that, he turned around to look for Yunjian. As he walked, he carefully unwrapped a candied haw and stuffed it into his mouth. Just as Yi was about to disappear from his sight, Yuan Xing frowned and called her again. "Wait a minute." Yi licked the candied haws and turned around. In the past, no matter whether he ignored her when she was bullied or treated her indifferently, Yi always regarded him as her savior. However, after meeting Yunjian, she seemed to have changed. Yi took another bite of the candied haws and looked at Yuan Xing. Her feet were moving forward as if she couldn't wait to find Yunjian. No one had ever said to her, "From today onwards, you Yi are under my protection." She seemed to have found a new salvation. Yuan Xing saw that her eyes were shining. Under the ghost mask, he was still expressionless. In the end, he just said 3 words indifferently, "It's okay." Please remember the domain name of the book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2435. Before Yuan Lin could finish his sentence, Yi had already run away impatiently. Yuan Lin was wearing a ghost mask, revealing only a pair of dark eyes. Yuan Lin's dark eyes flashed when he saw Yi run away before he could finish his sentence. But nothing happened in the end. He turned around and left as if he had never been there. Yunjian frowned slightly when she saw the address on the envelope. There was only a piece of white paper in the envelope. An address was written on the white paper, and a line of strong handwriting was written on the address. "Friend or foe? Which god and immortal lord? Please come to this place. Here, you can find the mystery of why the mysterious man has been targeting you for thousands of years." These few sentences were written with a fountain pen. These few words were written with great force. It could be seen that the person who wrote these few sentences was very strong. Although the person did not directly state his identity, it could be seen from the words "friend" or "foe" that this person was not on the mysterious man's side. Moreover, the address he wrote in the letter was the same as the place where Yunjian and Ce had found out about the series of events that happened thousands of years ago on the Shenming continent and the Wanwan continent. Therefore, It could be ruled out that this person was not on the mysterious man's side. If it was the mysterious man, he would not have passed on such important information to them. Yun Jian took the envelope and burned it with a lighter. I have to stay here for a while. You go back to your original place first. I'll take you away when I'm done, Yun Jian said to Yi Ji. Yes, yes, yes. Yi Ji nodded vigorously at Yun Jian. Yi Ji originally trusted Yuan Lin very much, but Yun Jian appeared. Yun Jian treated her better than Yuan Lin. Yi Ji ran out excitedly after hearing Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian looked at Yi Ji's departing figure and smiled slightly. The mystery of why the mysterious man had been targeting her in CE for thousands of years was finally going to be solved. Yun Jian and Yi Ji had just returned to the set after meeting each other in the crew's washroom. Isn't she just a little girl that Sister Lu bought? I can't deal with others, but you think I can't deal with you. A sharp female voice suddenly sounded. In the next second, a scream spread through the sky. What Yun Jian saw was Mifan stabbing a silver needle into Yi Ji's body in front of everyone. Yi Ji was so scared that she shrank back. Tears welled up in her eyes. She wanted to escape, but Mifan caught her and stabbed her. Needless to say, Mifan's background was very big. Since she dared to do this in front of everyone, she must be confident that no one would dare to expose her scandal. The reason Mifan targeted Yi Ji was purely because she had failed to catch Yun Jian and Yi Ji previously. She held a grudge against Yun Jian, especially since Yun Jian had stolen her role as the female lead. Since she could not deal with Yun Jian, she went after Yi Ji instead. Yun Jian's eyes were bloodshot when she saw this. She didn't know why, but her heart was bleeding when she saw Yi Ji being bullied. When Mifan saw Yun Jian, she grabbed Yi Ji's hair and arrogantly stabbed a silver needle into Yi Ji's face. Everyone could tell that Mifan wanted to use this opportunity to provoke Yun Jian. But just when everyone thought that Yun Jian wouldn't be able to go against Mifan, Yun Jian's next move shocked everyone. Please remember the domain name of this book. .com. Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website. .com. Chapter 2436. Page 1/1. Who was Mifan? She was an international movie queen who had won the Best Actress award in one fell swoop. She was also known as an international movie queen. With her status and power, not many people in the industry could afford to offend her. In addition, Mifan had been in the industry for many years and knew many big investors and famous international figures. Therefore, in the industry, no one dared to offend Mifan. When Mifan was acting on set, not to mention bullying the staff, she even needed her assistant to bring tea to her mouth. Not long ago, a new assistant had forgotten that Mifan liked to drink tea with lemon in it, so she brought her a cup of tea without lemon in it. Mifan took a sip and spat the tea on the new assistant's face. Then, she kicked the assistant to the ground and fired her on the spot. Mifan had acted like a big shot many times. But even so, she had support. Who would dare to expose her? Unless they didn't want to work anymore. Even if someone did expose such news, with Mifan's status, she would quickly use other means to cover it up. No media outlet would be stupid enough to go against Mifan for a staff member. Therefore, Mifan became more and more arrogant. Mifan knew Sister Lu who had bought Yi Ji. After knowing that Yi Ji was Sister Lu's woman, Mifan attacked Yi Ji in public on purpose. She did it on purpose for Yun Jian to see. But no one expected that Yun Jian, a newly promoted actress, would dare to go against Mifan in public. At this moment, seeing Yun Jian rushing towards Mifan, a few staff members who were standing afar were shocked. Quick! Stop her! The crowd instantly became noisy. A group of staff members responded and wanted to run towards Yun Jian who was running towards Mifan. But the group of staff members only had time to take one step before Yun Jian arrived in front of Mifan in front of everyone with a speed that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. Mifan jumped in fright. At this moment, Mifan's silver needles had just pierced into Yi Ji's back and was about to pierce her again. She was still waiting to see Yun Jian being stopped and restrained by a group of staff members. Then, she could only watch helplessly as she pierced Yi Ji's body one by one with a painful expression. But Mifan didn't expect Yun Jian to actually. Her speed was actually so fast. Even Wei Yuka and Dong Lijie who were resting not far away were so shocked by Yun Jian that they stood up and straightened their backs. They didn't expect Yun Jian would dare to attack Best Actress Mifan before the mission was completed. Didn't Yun Jian Even if he were to die, as a spy for the police, he could not expose his skills before completing his mission. Otherwise, the missions. The members of the 3 special forces teams in the distance also exclaimed in shock. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian would only snatch the silver needles from Shermifan's hands and not dare to attack Shermifan, a shocking scene happened. Yun Jian walked around Shermifan and stood behind Shermifan. She didn't help Yi Ji up as everyone expected. Instead, she reached out and grabbed the pile of silver needles beside Shermifan's resting seat. She skillfully held 4 silver needles in her hands and pulled Shermifan, who was trying to escape out of fear, over to Shermifan and pressed the 4 silver needles into Shermifan's back. She actually pierced the silver needles into Shermifan's body in front of everyone. The 4 silver needles were directly inserted into Shermifan's body. Even the ends of the needles were nowhere to be seen. Shermifan had only used the tip of the needles to prick Yi Ji. And Yun Jian? She had directly inserted the silver needles into Shermifan's body. Just looking at this method was enough to make people scared. Not to mention experiencing it for themselves. Ah! Just as Yun Jian finished her actions, Shermifan's heart-wrenching screams were heard. At this moment, Yun Jian raised her leg and kicked the spot where the silver needles had just been inserted into Shermifan's back, giving Shermifan a painful kick as if she was facing death. Just as everyone was stupefied by Yun Jian's horrifying tactic, her voice that was so cold that it sent chills down one's spine rang out in the next second. "I'll spare your cheap life. Your career as an actress is over." Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2437. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yun Jian's words, coupled with her cruel and horrifying methods, made everyone feel as if they were witnessing an international movie star falling from the entertainment industry because of her evil deeds. For some reason, when this scene appeared in everyone's eyes, it made them feel fear from the depths of their souls. Ah! My body, my body! I can't use my strength, Someone come quickly. Ah! Shermifan also screamed like a pig being slaughtered after the horrifying scene appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone was completely thrown into disarray. At this moment, no one was willing to help Shermifan. Even Shermifan's own new assistant was hesitant and unwilling to step forward. Most of the people present knew what kind of person Shermifan was in the past, but they didn't dare to say it. Now that Yun Jian had done this to Shermifan in front of everyone, although everyone was frightened and horrified, but they had to say, everyone felt that Shermifan deserved it. People like Shermifan had already been offended by all the crew members in the film. Some people even felt a little happy in their hearts. Until Mr. Milland came forward, someone ran over to help send Shermifan to the hospital in order to leave a good impression in front of Mr. Milland. At this moment, as the person who sent Shermifan to the hospital, Yun Jian looked at Mr. Milland without the slightest fear. Hey, Shermifan is the female lead of our movie. Without her, how are we going to continue filming? Mr. Milland also didn't dare to be angry at Yun Jian, because Yun Jian played the role that he had always wanted to find someone to play. If he wanted to replace Yun Jian, that role played by Yun Jian was even harder to find than changing the female lead. Being questioned by Mr. Milland, Yun Jian didn't say a word. In the end, Mr. Milland waved his hand. Forget it. With Shermifan's current condition, she definitely can't continue to play the female lead. You should dress up tonight and come with me to meet our project investor to apologize in person. This was because Yun Jian's acting skills as Audrey could not be imitated by outsiders. As for the role of Aodhan in the movie, Mr. Milland dreamed of finding an actress who could play her role. To put it bluntly, other than Yun Jian, no one else could play the role of Aldous. Therefore, Mr. Milland did not blame Yun Jian too much. To put it nicely, Yun Jian was still useful to Mr. Milland, so he protected her. Yun Jian wasn't kidding when she said that Shermifan's career as an actress was over. By the time Shermifan recovered, she would have completed her mission. By then, she would have banned Shermifan in the name of New Cruise's director. Would she still be alive then? After meeting with Mr. Milland, Yun Jian had just walked to a secluded spot when Dong Lijie stopped Yun Jian. After a while, the leader of the most awesome squad, Xueqi, and a few other members stood in front of Yun Jian. You've gotten the chance to meet the target tonight? The last time you went to the office with Mr. Milland, you wanted Mr. Milland to agree to this? Dong Lijie was the first to ask. Yun Jian ignored her and turned to leave. Slashing God, no matter what you're doing, please remember our goal. You'll only attract our target's attention if you keep being so flamboyant. Once we've caught the attention of our target, the chances of us completing the mission will become smaller and smaller. Are you sure you're not here to hinder our mission? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2438. Just as Yun Jian took 2 steps forward, a voice came from behind her. It was the leader of the most awesome squad, Xueqi. Xueqi was looking at Yun Jian with suspicion and certainty that Yun Jian was here to ruin their mission. The members of the most awesome squad did not believe Yun Jian at all. Yun Jian stopped, curled her lips, and continued walking forward, ignoring the members of the most awesome squad. Slashing God, before we return to Country Z, we've looked into your battle record. If you're capable, all you did was expose yourself to the target and cause the target to suspect us before we even started the mission. If you're not even as good as the other 6 members of Team Monarch, what right do you have to be called the strongest in Team Monarch? Could it be that your previous battle record is the same as what we heard? That it's all because of your father, Team Monarch's previous commanding officer? It's not just your battle record that was covered up by your father. Could it be that everyone in Team Monarch's battle record was exaggerated by your father? Team Monarch really disappoints me. Seeing that Yun Jian was about to leave, Xueqi sized up Yun Jian with his eyes and spread his words in an extremely serious tone. With that, Yun Jian's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. She suddenly curled her lips into a red arc and turned slightly to speak to Xueqi and the other members of the most awesome squad in a voice that was no less imposing than Xueqi's. Her words were as cold as winter ice. Tonight. What? Listening to Yun Jian's cold utterance that was incomprehensible yet chilling, the members of the most awesome squad were taken aback before they asked in return. Before midnight tonight, I'll have all the evidence of that big investor's drug trafficking. If you can complete the mission before I get it, you can say whatever you want, Yun Jian said. With that, she paused for a moment before flashing a stunning smile. If you can't, I'll have to trouble you to shut your annoying mouths. When Yun Jian's words fell, the expressions of the members of the most awesome squad suddenly changed. Finish the mission before midnight tonight? Was she, the killing god, joking? One must know the identity of that big investor. He was an international big shot. Usually, as a spy, if they were to get close to such a big shot, some spies would even need to spend a few years or decades to gain the trust of the other party before they could successfully complete their mission. If such a task could be completed within 3 years, it would already be a great favor. Because the mission had been completed. With their standards, even if they were discovered, it wasn't impossible for them to fail the mission. And Yun Jian actually said that she would complete the mission before midnight tonight? Everyone in the most awesome squad was so shocked that their faces suddenly changed. Someone's coming, let's go. At this moment, the member of the most awesome squad who was guarding nearby walked over. Hearing this, Xueqi, Dong Lijie, and the others quickly spread out. Seeing this, Yun Jian also walked in different directions. Yiji was saved by Yun Jian. At this time, Yiji had already returned to her simple and crude room and had already applied medicine on her shoulder. The medicine was given by Yun Jian. Thinking of how well Yun Jian treated her, Yiji couldn't help but laugh foolishly. What are you laughing at? Just as Yiji was laughing foolishly, a cold male voice sounded. Yiji wiped her saliva and saw Yuan Xing silently appear in front of her. You came here for me to deliver a message? Yiji was already used to Yuan Xing's sudden appearance and asked. No, Yuan Xing said. Then is there anything you need me to do? Yiji asked again. No. Yuan Xing frowned slightly. Yiji replied. After thinking for a while, Yiji said to Yuan Xing, then you don't have to come to me if you don't have anything in the future, I have friends. I don't need you anymore. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2439. But Yiji didn't say the last sentence out loud. Before meeting Yun Jian, Yiji relied on Yuan Xian a lot. Even though Yuan Xian didn't help her and even stood in the corner when Yiji was bullied, Yiji relied on Yuan Xian a lot. That was because after Yiji was reborn, Yuan Xian was the only person she knew. She was timid and afraid of others. Only Yuan Xian knew that she was reborn. But it was different now. There was Yun Jian. Yun Jian also knew that she was reborn. She even said that she would protect her. She wasn't just saying that. Yun Jian even went against that movie queen for her. Yi Ji was just afraid of interacting with people. She was timid and weak. It wasn't that she couldn't tell if someone was good or bad for her. Yi Ji was so touched that she almost cried when she saw what Yun Jian did to Shermifen for her. She was just a puppet that everyone hated. Why did she have to be so nice to her? After hearing Yi Ji's words, which were obviously much more distant than before, Yuan Xing was speechless. Under the ghost mask, his face twitched without leaving a trace. Okay. In the end, Yuan Xian didn't say anything else. He raised his voice and left. Yi Ji stared blankly. Thinking about how Yun Jian treated her, she stood up, opened the door and ran to find Yun Jian. Yi Ji did not see it. After Yuan Jin left, she came back here the moment she opened the door to look for Yun Jian. Yuan Xian stared at Yi Ji until she disappeared from his sight. Only then did he leave. Yi Ji chatted with Yun Jian for a long time. She looked at Yun Jian with admiration. If Yi Ji didn't have any other friends, Yun Jian would have thought that she had fallen in love with her. Finally, Yun Jian sent Yi Ji back to her place and left. The filming ended at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because Mr. Milland had to meet with the big investors that night. He would also bring Yun Jian along. The appointment with Yun Jian was at 6 o'clock. After Yun Jian returned to her place at 4 o'clock, she chatted with Yi Ji for half an hour. After sending Yi Ji back, she also returned to her place. At this time, there was still an hour and a half before the appointment with Mr. Milland. In other words, Yun Jian still had 1.5 hours to do other things. But just as Yun Jian left Yi Ji's house and was on her way back, she suddenly saw a familiar Lamborghini sports car. Without looking at the license plate number, Yun Jian knew whose car it was. Yun Jian walked over to the Lamborghini in a few steps, opened the door, and got in. As soon as they sat in the car, two chubby figures threw themselves into Yun Jian's arms. Mama 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 yeah. Mama hee hee mama mama mama. Mama mama. The giggling noises at the front were made by the little girl, and the voice of fear of being left out at the back was made by the little fellow. Ce sat in the driver's seat. Seeing the two children beaming with joy when they saw Yun Jian, he breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't see you crying. So he brought the two children to find her. The two children seemed to understand Ci's words. They laughed and drilled into Yun Jian's arms. The little girl grabbed the corner of Yun Jian's clothes and was almost buried in Yun Jian's arms. The little girl drilled into Yun Jian's chest. In spite of it, the little guy was lifted up just as it tried to burrow into Yun Jian's chest before it could. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile Reading Website. Chapter 2440. Page 1/1. After the little boy was lifted up, he could only watch helplessly as the little girl let out a satisfied cry of, Mama ya. Then, the little girl wrapped her short arms around Yun Jian's waist and grabbed onto the corner of Yun Jian's clothes with one hand. She turned her short neck and buried her head in Yun Jian's arms. She looked at the little boy who was lifted up and suddenly giggled. After being giggled by the little girl for a while, the little boy suddenly pouted. At this moment, the little boy had just been lifted up by Ce. Hearing the little girl ridicule him like this, the little fellow used his unique skill to fight back. He shoved his finger into his mouth and slapped it off with his other hand. Just like the last time when Yun Jian slapped his finger off when he was sucking on it, he bared his teeth at the girl and called out, Hey, you're not going to be able to do anything to me. Trash. The little boy still remembered the last time when Yun Jian saw him sucking on his finger and slapped his hand away and said that he was dirty. When he heard the little boy yell, trash at himself, the little girl immediately buried her head in Yun Jian's arms and used her head to burrow into Yun Jian's arms. She made a very pleasant sound. At this moment, Ce had already grabbed the little boy by the back of his shirt and threw him to the front passenger seat. Sit tight. The little boy looked at Ce with a confused expression and wanted to crawl to the back seat to look for Yun Jian. Ce grabbed the little boy's shirt and fixed him in the front passenger seat. His tone was so deep that it seemed like he would beat the little boy up in the next second. The little boy stared at him for 2 seconds and was stunned. He did not know why his father was so fierce to him. Ce pulled the seatbelt on the front passenger seat and fastened it for the little boy to prevent him from running around. Don't fasten the seatbelt so tightly. He'll feel uncomfortable. He's still young. Yun Jian saw this and reminded him. The little boy was only 5.5 months old and had not been weaned off milk. He's not young anymore. He had already learned to burrow into his mother's chest. Siyi's face darkened and he sulked. When Yun Jian saw this, she could not help but feel that Siyi was a little childish. However, she felt warm in her heart. She placed the little girl on the seat first, then stood up to loosen the little boy's seatbelt. After Yun Jian placed the girl in her seat, she quickly hugged Yun Jian's leg with her tiny hands when she saw Yun Jian standing up to loosen the safety belt for the child in the front passenger seat. Mama 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 mama. Her voice was soft and soft, cuter than a little lamb. After Yun Jian she was going to Little's, the little boy, the little girl's little. Where to? Yun Jian asked. Up to you. Ce glanced sideways at Yun Jian, his eyes full of affection. Let's go to the supermarket then, Yun Jian said. The two of them went to the supermarket and sat in the shopping cart. They were especially happy. The Amazon shopping mall in L City of M Country was the largest shopping mall in the vicinity. And there was a very large supermarket in the Amazon shopping mall. Yun Jian and Ce brought the little girl and the little boy here. The shopping mall here was filled with M Country people. Yun Jian and Ce's family of 4 became foreigners. At this time, the little girl and the little boy were sitting in the shopping cart in the shopping mall. They were so excited that Ce pushed them around. Huff, huff, huff. Huff, huff. The little boy even imitated the sound of the shopping cart blowing. If Adam and Mo-san were to see Ce pushing the shopping cart and running like a kid just to make the two kids happy, their eyeballs would probably fall out of their sockets. Halfway through, Yun Jian went over to carry the little girl and the little boy out of the shopping cart. In the end, the two kids tugged at Yun Jian and called her Mama, asking Yun Jian to sit in the cart and play with them. Sit in, Xiao Jian. I'll push you guys, Ce said, his tone brimming with unconcealable indulgence. If it was in the past, Ce would not even bother to push a cart. Today was different. The 3 most important people in his life were here. What he had disdained to do in the past was now interesting. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2441. Yun Jian's heart almost melted when she saw the 2 little guys looking at her expectantly. In the end, Yun Jian also listened to the 2 little guys and sat in the shopping cart. Ce pushed Yun Jian and the 2 little guys around the supermarket. This scene was originally not harmonious, but when others saw it, there was an indescribable sense of warmth. In the end, the 2 little guys were tired and fell asleep in the shopping cart. Yun Jian carried the little girl. Ce did not carry the little guy this time. He also carried the little guy and walked towards the hotel where Ce and the 2 little guys were staying. Yun Jian was still on a mission. She was not supposed to meet Ce and the 2 little guys. When on a mission, they were not supposed to tell their relatives the location, let alone meet them. Of course, that was under the premise that they were not completely confident in completing the mission. That kind of rule was only for ordinary people. After tucking the 2 little guys into bed, Yun Jian bent down and kissed their foreheads. Then, she turned to leave. At 6 o'clock, she still had to attend a dinner with her target, the big investor. What about me? Seeing that Yun Jian kissed the 2 little guys' foreheads and was about to leave, Ce grabbed her wrist and said. Yun Jian was stunned. She did not understand what Ce meant. Ce could naturally tell from Yun Jian's expression that Yun Jian did not understand what he meant. Perhaps, in other words, Yun Jian only thought of the 2 little guys. Ce reached out and held the back of Yun Jian's head. He bent down and kissed her. This was the price she had to pay for forgetting him. Yun Jian's face was still red when she walked out of the hotel. Yun Jian put her hand on her neck and stopped thinking about the bad things Ce did. She quickly walked back to her room. Back at her room, Yun Jian changed into a black bodysuit and black tights. She also put on a black fur coat over the black bodysuit. Once she put on the black fur coat, the skin-tight top and leggings that looked cool made her look alluring and seductive in an instant. The black bodysuit and tights were what Yun Jian often wore when she went out on missions in her previous life. She was straightforward and did not hesitate at all. Moreover, many weapons could be hidden under the black bodysuit and tights. Because of the black bodysuit and tights, knives and guns would not be too conspicuous when hidden on the body. As for the black fur coat, it turned the originally cool Yun Jian into an enchanting and charming woman. At first glance, She looked like a woman who was trying to seduce people to go to a dinner party. Of course, this was only her appearance. As soon as Yun Jian walked out of her room, she saw the members of the Most Awesome Squad standing outside Yun Jian's room. Seeing Yun Jian come out, the members of the Most Awesome Squad, including Dong Lijie, seemed to have made a great decision. She said to Yun Jian in a serious tone, "I also received an invitation from Mr. Milan to go to the party with you today. As for what you said about completing the mission before midnight, I don't believe you. But we, the Most Awesome Squad, will complete the mission in the shortest time possible. Let's see who's stronger and who's weaker." Dong Lijie's words made Yun Jian narrow her eyes. She did not know how Dong Lijie got an invitation from Mr. Milan, but to be able to get an invitation from Mr. Milan, it meant that Dong Lijie and the other members of the Most Awesome Squad were indeed capable. But Yun Jian did not say anything. She turned around and bypassed them, leaving here. After Yun Jian left, Lu Yu, a member of the Most Awesome Squad, led everyone to say to Dong Lijie, "Lijie, in order to complete the mission, in order to not let innocent girls be persecuted by that big investor, we have to sacrifice your innocence, sorry. Please remember the domain name of this book." Chapter 2442. Page 1/1. Dong Lijie's heart skipped a beat when she heard the words sacrificing her virginity. To be honest, Dong Lijie did not think that Yun Jian would be able to complete this mission. Dong Lijie was not sacrificing herself to be able to complete the mission before Yun Jian. If Yun Jian could complete the mission smoothly without sacrificing herself, Dong Lijie would rather let Yun Jian take the honor. But from the looks of it, Yun Jian had exposed her identity too clearly. If this continued, they might not be able to complete the mission in the future. If the army sent more people over, the big investor would be more vigilant. In the current situation, the sooner they acted, the better. Dong Lijie clenched her fists. She did not reply to Lu Yu, but her clenched fists were trembling violently. Fortunately, she had already given her virginity to the captain before today. She had no regrets. At this moment, even Xueqi, who liked to talk, kept his mouth shut. The members of the three teams would go to the hotel where Yun Jian and Dong Lijie were having dinner with the investor. However, the members of the three teams would be guarding the entrance of the hotel and would only appear when needed. At this moment, Yun Jian had already met with Mr. Milan. Dong Lijie also followed along. Mr. Miran, on the other hand, brought Yun Jian and Dong Lijie to meet at the biggest Sheraton Hotel in L City in Country M. Sheraton Hotel was the largest hotel in L City. Not only did it include 5-star accommodation, it also had 5-star restaurants. Mr. Milan brought Yun Jian and Dong Lijie to the reserved restaurant to meet the investors. This movie was being filmed by a few big investors. Yun Jian and the others' target was the biggest investor of this movie. This person was called Galvin. Galvin was the biggest investor of this big movie. Galvin was originally from Country Z. After he moved his country of origin from Country Z to Country M, he abandoned his original Country Z name and took a Country M name. Galvin's eyebrows were very thick, 3 times thicker than the average person's. His fat face could be pieced together. His forehead was very short, and his body was very fat. He was so ugly that it was hard to look at him. Moreover, Gorwin's height was only about 1.62 meters, which was considered very short among the height of a man. Seeing Yun Jian and Dong Lijie walk in, Galvin suddenly pointed at Dong Lijie and raised his ugly eyebrows. He said to Mr. Milan, This is our new actress Lon Lon," Mr. Milan immediately said. Mr. Mir and then pointed at Yun Jian. "She's a new cast member as well. Her name is Luo Yi. You're both beautiful and tender." Galvin laughed. Then his eyes fixed on Dong Lijie. It had to be said that Dong Lijie did her homework before coming. Galvin liked women who wore revealing and sexy clothes. Dong Lijie wore very revealing clothes. Even in this cold winter, she simply put on a thin coat and came in. "Little girl, come and sit here. Uncle likes tender little girls like you. You look energetic. Sitting with you guys, I feel like I'm 20 years younger." Galvin patted the side of his seat and asked Dong Lijie to sit there. Dong Lijie saw this, responded sweetly and sat over. "Hi, we meet again." As soon as Yun Jian sat down, she saw the movie's male lead, Lu Junyu. Lu Junyu nodded to Yun Jian in a very gentlemanly manner. Yun Jian nodded and did not speak. Rather than a meal, it was more like Galvin was discussing business with a group of insiders. After all, it was Dong Lijie's first time doing this kind of thing. She sat next to Galvin and felt very uncomfortable. She instinctively resisted Galvin. But just as Dong Lijie was extremely resistant to this evil atmosphere, Galvin's hand was naturally placed on her exposed thigh. Translator. Tim Editor. Tim. Chapter 2443. Dong Lijie never thought that Gerwin's hand would be able to touch her thigh so smoothly in front of so many people. Dong Lijie was shocked, and the nausea in her heart became even more unrestrained. She looked up at Yun Jian sitting opposite her, finally clenched her fist, clenched her thumb, and held it back. There was no other way to get close to a person like Galvin. She could only rely on this. What's more, as a friend of Gorwin's, a highly vigilant person like Gorwin would never reveal any flaws. I propose a toast to you. In the end, Galvin talked to others, and his hand naturally slid to Dong Lijie's thigh. Dong Lijie couldn't stand the uncomfortable atmosphere, and she immediately stood up to get the bottle. Galvin was unhappy, but he still didn't show it. The investors and Mr. Milland had seen a lot of pedantic things, so no one felt that it was inappropriate. Especially this kind of thing, generally, the actresses were willing to do it. It was a matter of mutual consent. All the actresses wanted was to get better resources on the road of acting, and everyone knew what Galvin wanted. So no one would stand up to stop it. In the end, Dong Lijie was dragged to a hotel by Galvin, and they got a room at the 5-star Sharia Hotel. Bang! Zhu Jian, the captain of the most awesome team, punched the wall, and he closed his eyes in pain. Sacrificing Dong Lijie was something that no one in the most awesome team wanted to happen. Especially Zhu Jian. Captain. The other members of the most awesome team didn't feel much, but at this moment, Lu Yu spoke. Don't talk to me. Zhu Jian yelled at Lu Yu. Just now, they saw Dong Lijie and Galvin walk into the hotel. Just after Zhu Jian's words, everyone saw Yun Jian coming out of the Sharia Hotel. As soon as Zhu Jian thought of Dong Lijie and Galvin walking into the hotel, he was upset as if he was about to lose the most important thing in his life. Zhu Jian's mood began to become self-destructive. He suddenly remembered that Yun Jian said before that she would complete the mission before this morning, and a trace of hatred surged in his head. He rushed up and stopped Yun Jian. What are you doing? It seemed that Dong Lijie walking into the hotel with Galvin tonight was caused by Yun Jian. But now, if they rushed into the hotel to save Dong Lijie, then, not only would today's efforts be wasted, their mission this time would be a complete failure. If you gave up halfway through something, not only would what you have done in the past be in vain, you might not even be able to complete it in the future. For example, if they rushed in to save Dong Lijie this time, then they would have saved the girl. But did they think about it? Wouldn't Galvin be suspicious? Unless they had the power to force Gorwin to hand over the evidence of his drug trafficking. But they didn't. Just as Zhu Jian stopped Yun Jian, T-Rex Squad and Team Monarch rushed to the scene. They came at the sound of the commotion. Zhu Jian suddenly hugged his head and squatted down in pain. He had to accept the painful reality no matter how unwilling he was. Just as everyone lowered their heads in silence, indescribably sorrowful, thinking that this was an irreversible situation, a woman's voice rang. Sister Jian. Everyone turned to look at the voice, only to see a curvaceous woman in a red cheongsam appearing before them. It was none other than New Cruise's CEO, Alluring Demon. Alluring Demon's appearance surprised everyone. Before they could react, however, Yun Jian took off her black fur coat and tossed it aside. Under the coat was a special agent's outfit for a mission. Yun Jian drew her pistol from the holster at her waist and spun it around before holding it in her hand. Suddenly, she drew a red arc and spoke to Alluring Demon in front of everyone, igniting their hope. F***CKU go. Please remember the domain name of this book. Chapter 2444. Page 1/1. Not only did Gerwin sell drugs, but he also lured countless underage girls into the entertainment industry. Using the excuse of training them to become superstars, he made these underage girls jump into the trap that Gerwin had set for them. They didn't even know when Gerwin had lured them into the path of drug abuse and prostitution that would ruin their lives. Gerwin even participated in the conflict in the underground world. The reason why Gerwin's influence was so great that even the police couldn't find evidence of him selling drugs was because Gerwin had also developed his influence in the underground world. As luck would have it, Gorwin was also secretly stealing a small portion of Gu Sha mercenaries' profits, just like Xian Yu and Milo whom he had met in Marilina's tomb. Just like Xian Yu and Milo, they secretly stole a small portion of the Kosha mercenaries' firearms to strengthen their own influence. Gerwin's actions in the underground world were also similar to Xian Yu and Milo's. They both secretly split the profits under the Kosha mercenaries. Since the profits were small, the Kosha mercenaries' higher-ups wouldn't care. As luck would have it, Yun Jian happened to run into it. If Yun Jian didn't encounter it, then this trivial matter wouldn't concern the boss of the Kosha mercenaries. Even the elders of the Kosha mercenaries would be too lazy to deal with it. But since Yun Jian encountered this matter, then, assassination team? Killing God. Is there someone coming to support us today? Can they force Gerwin to hand over the evidence of drug trafficking? After hearing Yun Jian's words, the leader of the T-Rex squad, Tian Xueqi's eyes flashed with a sharp glint. He stupidly opened his mouth and asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Hearing Tian Xueqi's words, the originally dispirited and paralyzed Zhu Ao suddenly crawled up from the ground with a face full of despair. His entire body seemed to rush towards Yun Jian at the same time. Because of his agitation, he almost grabbed Yun Jian's collar. Fortunately, Zhu Ao immediately realized that he had lost his composure. He bent his waist, completely different from the strong aura he had when he first met Yun Jian. At this moment, Zhu Ao was in a sorry state as if he had found a life-saving straw in a hopeless situation. He lowered his posture. A dignified 1.8m man who had never begged anyone before, standing in front of Yun Jian, this was the first time he felt helpless. He spoke with a pleading tone. Killing God, as long as you bring Li Jie back safely, I, Zhu Ao, will be your subordinate. Even if I have to go through fire and water for you, even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, I will not say a word of objection. I, Zhu Ao, in the name of a soldier. Zhu Ao had pinned all her hopes on Yun Jian. Captain. Could she really do it if he placed all his hopes on her? Killing God was indeed interesting. She was different from the other girls I had met before. But a girl like her, I think it's only suitable for her to stay on campus and be an ordinary girl. We all saw Li Jie's sacrifice and couldn't bear it. But it can't be salvaged. Now it's better to think about how to complete the mission. And Killing God, I hope you won't interfere with our mission. Lu Yu of the Most Awesome Team heard Zhu Ao's words and couldn't help but speak up. Dong Li Jie's sacrifice could be exchanged for the benefits of the Most Awesome Team. If this mission could be completed, the Most Awesome Team would directly benefit. Others may feel that Dong Li Jie's sacrifice was disappointing, but no one would care too much about it. After all, they weren't the ones who were injured. Lu Yu's words were immediately echoed by the other members of the Most Awesome Team. What's more, who knew if Yun Jian could get reinforcements? Who knew if her words were credible or not? But at the moment when everyone thought so, suddenly a group of members dressed in black mission uniforms appeared in front of everyone. This group of people were all holding guns. They were one of the teams in the Kosha Mercenaries assassination team. The leader was Raccoon from the Kosha Mercenaries. The sudden appearance of this group of people caused everyone present to be slightly stunned. Amidst everyone's shock, the civet cat suddenly tossed the item he was holding to Yun Jian. When Yun Jian caught it easily, the civet cat spoke to Yun Jian in front of everyone. You're the one who's going to die. Sister Jian, this is Country D's latest HK that you asked for. It's an MP7 submachine gun with a 4.6mm caliber and a muzzle velocity of 750 meters per second. I used it twice just now and it's great. I can't unleash the gun's full power. Catch it. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2445. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Raccoon appeared before them with a group of armed men. It was obvious that these people were strong and each of them had been through hundreds of battles. In fact, the strength of any one of them was comparable to that of an officer like Lu Cheng. When Raccoon appeared before them with a group of people, Lu Yu from the strongest squad and a few other members who did not trust Yun Jian as much as Lu Yu, the T-Rex squad, and the 6 members of Team Monarch were shocked and bewildered. They were bewildered by the identity of Raccoon and the group of people he brought with him. However, when Raccoon took out the latest HK made in Germany in front of everyone, after the MP7 submachine gun was tossed into Yun Jian's hand and what she said just now, everyone was stunned into silence. Apart from Xueqi, Lu Yu from the strongest squad and a few other members who did not trust Yun Jian had their faces darkened. Raccoon's words were like a slap to their faces in front of everyone. Yun Jian took the latest HK made in Germany. She held the MP7 submachine gun in her hand and twirled it twice in front of everyone. Then, she put away the pistol she brought from the army. "You go back first." After giving the witch a simple and irrefutable order, Yun Jian turned around and led a group of members from the assassination squad to the Sharia 5-star hotel. When the members of the three teams saw this, they hurriedly followed. Galvin brought Dong Lijie to a room 2110. Country M was a country that allowed citizens to carry guns at home. To put it bluntly, Country M did not prohibit citizens from buying guns. As long as there were people around, it was legal for an ordinary person to buy a gun. At that moment, Yun Jian barged into the hotel. Room 2110 was on the 21st floor of the Sharia 5-star hotel. The Sharia 5-star hotel was huge. The entire skyscraper was at least a few dozen stories high. They took the elevator to the 21st floor. As soon as they arrived, they saw that room 2110 was surrounded by bodyguards at the corner. Galvin was not stupid. The more famous a person was, the more enemies they had. Celebrities and rich people often brought many bodyguards with them to save their lives. The group of bodyguards around Galvin was actually a group of underground assassins. Galvin valued his life very much. He hired powerful underground assassins all year round and had them disguise themselves as bodyguards to protect him at all times. No matter where he went, Galvin would have this group of bodyguards to protect him. That was the reason why the police did not know where to start. Even if he had to have bodyguards at the door when he was with a woman, Galvin was indeed a person. "What should we do?" The door of the hotel where Galvin and Dong Lijie were staying was right in front of them, but they couldn't get close because of the group of bodyguards. "Lu," said Lu Yu. At that moment, everyone hid in the corner. Everyone knew that Galvin's bodyguards were all underground assassins. They were not as act translation just as Lu Yu spoke up, and everyone thought that even if they wanted to save her, they would be powerless to do so. Yun Jian suddenly made a signal to Raccoon and several members of the assassination group in front of everyone. Raccoon and the members of the assassination group took the order and left by the elevator. Lu Yu and several members of the most awesome squad except Xueqi thought Raccoon and the members of the assassination group would help. Because only then would they have a little chance of winning. But who would have thought that Yun Jian would let them go? Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian was going to give up on the rescue because she was outnumbered and could not defeat the group of bodyguards and assassins, Yun Jian suddenly held up the HK pistol, MP7 submachine gun on her back. Then she took out a blade in front of everyone present and bit it in her mouth. Then, she suddenly rolled in front of the group of Galvin's bodyguards, who were professional assassins. The next second, in front of everyone, she did something that made everyone's eyeballs pop out. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2446. Page 1/1. During the audition, Yun Jian's superb performance had made everyone feel as though they had seen a living female assassin, Audrey, crawl out of the movie and into the real world. At this moment, the group of Galvin's bodyguards before them was a real group of assassins. Completely different from the assassin Audrey that Yun Jian had played. Galvin's bodyguards were a group of real underground assassins. They roamed the peak of the world, carrying out one terrifying mission after another. They were a group of real professional assassins. They were two completely different concepts from the real assassins. Thus, when Yun Jian did not say a word, not even giving the members of the three teams a chance to greet her, she rushed over. At that moment, Lu Yu, Tian Shui, the members of the most awesome team and the T-Rex team all widened their eyes at the same time. She was finished. Not only had she exposed herself, she had also exposed all the members of the three teams. No, she was not finished. She was going to implicate them all. It was all over. Even for this mission, all the hard work they had put in before would all go down the drain because of Yun Jian's impulsiveness. Everyone's emotions rose to the highest point in an instant. Just as everyone thought so, they suddenly saw Yun Jian coming to the bodyguards before they could react to the sudden appearance of a silhouette. One of the bodyguards reacted the fastest. After he reacted, he wanted to call for help. His hand clenched into an eagle's claw and struck towards Yun Jian. However, before the bodyguard could react, Yun Jian had already rushed forward. Just as the bodyguard was about to call for help from the other bodyguards, She had already arrived behind him. She reached out and covered the bodyguard's mouth. The blade that was originally in his mouth had unknowingly slipped into Yun Jian's hand. Her hand holding the blade was as fast as lightning. In a situation where the naked eye could not see, it directly slashed through the bodyguard's throat. Blood splattered. The bodyguard died instantly. But before the blood could splatter from the bodyguard's throat, before the other bodyguards could react, the bodyguard had already died. Yun Jian covered the bodyguard's throat and silently laid him down on the ground. Crouching down, another bodyguard suddenly saw the corpse of the bodyguard whose throat was slit by Yun Jian's blade. He was so shocked that he wanted to scream and react. Yun Jian raised her leg and kicked the bodyguard's chin. That kick caused the bodyguard to bite his tongue. Due to the pain, he was unable to utter a single word. But he was still an assassin, naturally. He knew that danger had arrived. Ignoring his pain, he reached for his pistol at his waist and was about to shoot at Yun Jian when he was stopped by her. Yun Jian had already turned around and came to the bodyguard lightly, pushing the blade in the book into the bodyguard's temple. After killing this group of bodyguards, the other 3 bodyguards all noticed Yun Jian's move. At this moment, the 3 bodyguards were about to tell Galvin, who was in the hotel, that there was a sneak attack. At the same time, they shot at Yun Jian. The 3 bodyguards had just opened their mouths. The 3 blades had already followed the trajectory and flew directly into their mouths as if they knew that the 3 bodyguards were about to open their mouths. They sealed their mouths. Yun Jian almost flashed past the 3 bodyguards in an instant. When Yun Jian turned to look at the corner and saw what had happened in a matter of seconds, the crowd was dumbstruck and pale-faced. The 3 bodyguards behind Yun Jian also fell to the ground. From the beginning to the end, the process took only 15 seconds. Yun Jian's skills and movements were so coherent that it was amazing. What was even more frightening to the people present was that Yun Jian's moves seemed to be similar to the professional assassin hired by Mr. Milland at that time. But compared with that professional assassin, Yun Jian's killer moves were really what the top figures in the assassin and special agent world should have. Who was she? Top reading website, M. Chapter 2447. She. Wei Yuka, the female member of the T-Rex squad, was so shocked that her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Wei Yuka almost screamed out loud when she saw this scene. Fortunately, the captain of the T-Rex squad, Tian Xueqi, reacted quickly and covered Wei Yuka's mouth. They could not alert the enemy. Galvin still had subordinates. If the rest of Galvin's subordinates heard the commotion and came over, it would only delay the time. Dong Lijie, who was in the room, was the one whose innocence was at stake. Therefore, no one dared to say a word even though there were many doubts and astonishment. However, what they did not expect was that Yun Jian was so skillful. Was this really the strength of Team Monarch, slaying God, as the rumors said? Sharia 5-star Hotel. In the private room where they had dinner, Yun Jian left. Dong Lijie left with Galvin. Mr. Milland and the other investors were still in the private room. What a beautiful young lady. Milland, your taste is getting better and better. One of the investors looked at Milland with a wretched expression and said to Milland, "Sigh, what a pity. What a good girl." Milland raised the wineglass in his hand and shook his head when he thought of Dong Lijie leaving with Galvin and who knew what she was going to do. "Ha ha ha, brother Milland, here's a toast to you. Who would have thought that our great director Miran had such a kind side to him? I've never thought of this before. As far as I know, the little B** cheese that Brother Galvin did were introduced to Brother Galvin by you, the great director Milland, who is rumored to be the cleanest and fairest international director in the entertainment industry." The investor clinked his glass with Milland's and laughed out loud. His tone was indescribably wretched. "Let's not talk about the past. Let's not talk about the past. Haha, come on. Let's drink." Milland changed the topic with a few words. In room 2110. Dong Lijie had been here for a long time. Galvin went into the bathroom to take a shower. Just now, Dong Lijie had wasted an hour taking a shower in the bathroom. She only came out when Gorwin was about to kick the door. After a while, the bathroom door opened. Gorwin's plump upper body was exposed like a pig that had just been slaughtered. That tanned skin and a large tuft of chest hair in the middle of his chest made people feel nauseous just by looking at it. Dong Lijie almost vomited, but she held it in. Gorwin was also a straightforward person. He walked over and pushed Dong Lijie onto the bed. If Dong Lijie had made up her mind when she entered the room, she would have been pushed onto the bed by Galvin, an old man whom she didn't like at all. Dong Lijie really regretted it now. That kind of fear was far more disgusting than death. That kind of indescribable nausea and disgust made Dong Lijie want to give up her identity as a Special Forces soldier. Wait a minute. Just as Galvin was about to get to the point, Dong Lijie exclaimed. What are you waiting for? Little b asterisk tch. You've never done it before. Gorwin grabbed Dong Lijie's hair and threw Dong Lijie back onto the bed. Her hair was violently pulled. She struggled to no avail. Gorwin didn't treat her as a human being at all. At this moment, Dong Lijie really regretted it. But just as Gorwin was about to punch and kick Dong Lijie, Gorwin was kicked 4 or 5 meters away by a foot that suddenly appeared. He then hit the wardrobe and rolled to the ground. A bone-chilling female voice, like a redeeming god, resounded through the room. Gorwin, you'll pay back everything you owe my kosher mercenaries one by one. If you want to talk about Campus Rebirth, the strongest female agent, with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Talk about life. Find confidants. Chapter 2448. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. A sharp voice rang out and faded away. That straightforward female voice caused everyone's eyes to flash sharply after hearing it. Instantly, everyone realized what Yun Jian meant. Even Gerwin, who was kicked by Yun Jian, slammed into the wardrobe and rolled to the ground, heard Yun Jian's words. Suddenly, the temperature in the hotel dropped to freezing point. Everyone's attention was completely captured by Yun Jian's, I'm from the kosher mercenaries. Gu Gu Sha. You're from the kosher mercenaries. Gerwin was kicked by Yun Jian and slammed into the wardrobe. His fat body could not get up for a long time because Yun Jian's kick was so powerful that it made Gerwin spit out a mouthful of blood. When he heard the words, kosher mercenaries, Gerwin was scared out of his wits. The fear of death flooded his entire body. What kosher mercenaries? You're from the kosher mercenaries. Why haven't I heard you mention this before? Lu Yu looked at Yun Jian. She was so shocked that she could not react in time. Yun Jian was from the kosher mercenaries. How was that possible? The kosher mercenaries were on par with the world's #1 assassin organization, an Hun organization. Those present were all members of the Special Forces, so naturally, they had heard of them. Isn't she a member of Team Monarch? How is she related to the kosher mercenaries? Lu Yu did not get a reply from Yun Jian, so she turned to ask Team Monarch's captain, Lu Shiyun. Lu Shiyun shrugged and said nothing. He was obviously too lazy to answer Lu Yu's question. At this time, Dong Lijie had shrunk to the corner of the bed. She raised her eyes, which were filled with tears, and looked at Yun Jian, who was not far away. If Dong Lijie used to look at Yun Jian with hatred and extreme disgust, then Dong Lijie's gaze towards Yun Jian now was filled with endless gratitude. Although Dong Lijie had carried out many missions, the previous ones were basically not dangerous. It was also her first time taking on such a dangerous mission. Before departure, Dong Lijie thought that she would do anything for the mission. She was even willing to sacrifice her innocence. However, when Gerwin was on top of her, that feeling that was far more than what she had imagined, Dong Lijie was completely. She was still not enough. She was not as she had imagined. She, slashing god of Team Monarch, was the real powerhouse. Lu Yu's question did not get a response. Just as Lu Yu wanted to continue asking, she and the other members of the strongest team who did not believe in Yun Jian's strength suddenly saw it. Yun Jian went to Gervin, who was rolling on the ground, and stomped on his stomach in front of everyone. Bending down, the corners of her lips curled up slightly, her unbridled smirk sending chills down the spines of the onlookers. Old thing, do you think we won't notice that you've secretly taken benefits from the kosher mercenaries? With every sentence, Yun Jian increased the strength of her foot. Gerwin's face showed a pained expression as Yun Jian stomped on his stomach. Don't. I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again. Please, kosher mercenaries, spare me. Gerwin was so scared that his face turned pale. He thought that the kosher mercenaries would not take it to heart, so he attacked the kosher mercenaries. But he did not expect that. If I don't take your life, how can I make up for the loss of the kosher mercenaries? Yun Jian's last kick made Gerwin's heart twist violently. Lu Shiyun, the captain of Team Monarch, saw this and tacitly stepped forward and spoke to Gerwin. Where are the girls you forced to take drugs and prostitute? Show us all the evidence of your crimes, or I'll send you on your way. With that, Lu Shiyun did not hold back. He took out a pistol from his pocket and pointed it at Gerwin's temple. I'll talk. I'll talk. There. Gerwin was so scared that he confessed immediately. Gerwin was not frightened by Lu Shiyun's pistol, but by the Kosha mercenaries. Lu Shiyun was very smart. He knew that with Yun Jian's means, she could just kill him directly. However, she did not kill him directly, which meant that she wanted to help them get evidence of Gerwin's drug trafficking and bring him to justice. In the end, Galvin confessed. Chu Ning also brought a recording pen and recorded Gerwin's confession. Following the process, the other two teams could do nothing but stand aside and watch. Instead, it was the members of Team Monarch who cooperated with Yun Jian to solve everything. Now that the mission is completed, we can go home and have a good night's sleep. Chu Xiongnan laughed. You only know how to sleep. Chu Ning reached out and pinched Chu Xiongnan ear. However, just when everyone thought that the mission was completed, Yun Jian's words rang again and reached everyone's ears. Gerwin is just an accomplice. The real mastermind of the drug trafficking is not him. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2449. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. What? He's not the real mastermind of the drug trafficking? If that's the case, all our efforts have been in vain. If it's not him, then who is it? Killing God, you're not lying to us. Are you trying to monopolize today's achievement? Even if the real mastermind is not Galvin, he is involved in this drug trafficking operation. This evidence is enough for him to go to jail. As soon as Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone immediately chimed in. The first to speak was Lu Yu. The second to speak was an inconspicuous member of the most awesome squad. The third to speak was Lu Shiyun. After everyone finished speaking, Yun Jian did not care. She lifted her foot and patted Galvin's face. She said lazily, "Are you going to tell us the mastermind yourself, or should I help you?" "You're from the police." Galvin seemed to have realized something. He looked at Yun Jian, Chu Ning, Lu Shiyun, and the others and exclaimed, "Yo, it took you so long to react? Didn't you say you were the big boss of the entertainment industry? Why are you so slow?" Chu Xiongnan could not help but tease. In fact, it was not that Galvin's reaction was slow, but that Galvin had been frightened by the words, Kosha mercenaries, from the beginning. Galvin was so frightened that he did not have time to react or consider the identity of Yun Jian and the others. Still not speaking? Looks like you don't plan to leave here alive. When everyone came back to their senses, they saw that Yun Jian was already holding the HK given by the raccoon. It was an MP7 submachine gun. She pointed the muzzle at Galvin's head and drew an arc. This submachine gun was different from a pistol. A submachine gun could shoot a lot of bullets in one breath. Although it was not as good as a machine gun, it could shoot a person into a wasp cocoon. However, the power of a submachine gun was not bad. After a while, it could still shoot a person into a wasp's nest. Therefore, when Galvin noticed that Yun Jian had pointed the submachine gun at his head, he thought of the consequences if he did not confess. His face turned pale and he quickly said, I'll talk. I'm just working for him. The real mastermind of the drug trafficking is... What happened inside and outside of room 2110 did not alarm anyone. At the same time at Ye's residence. Ye's residence was very simple. It was just a small attic at the bottom of the stairs. Yi Ji's residence was actually very. But it did not belong to Yi. Yi was living with sister Lu rather than living. She was being fed like a dog. She did not even see her own bedroom. It was under the simple stairs. Beneath the stairs was the bed with a mirror. Not to mention, there was the door that was Ye's that was Ye's Yi. Translation when translation is she Yi translation even if sister translation on being editor translation she to translation to not she to sister after meeting Yun Jian. Yi Ji was now sitting in her small bedroom. She was holding the hair clip that Yun Jian had bought for her by the roadside just now because she liked it. She was wearing the pretty clip on her black hair after she had cleaned up. Thinking that it was a gift from Yunjian, Yiji could not help but want to laugh. It was sweet. After washing her face, it was a very smooth and beautiful face. She was just a little thinner. Yiji's body after her rebirth was also very beautiful. However, she had to hide the beauty of this body. Otherwise, she would have been thrown to the front desk of a brothel by Sister Lu instead of working hard in the logistics department. After putting on the hair clip, Yiji smiled. However, just as she put on the hair clip, she saw a man wearing a ghost mask appear behind her in the mirror. Yuan Xing stared at Yiji. Seeing that she saw him, the smile on her face froze. Then she smiled coldly at him and said expressionlessly, "Hand it over." Ha! Yuan Xing was confused. "Didn't I say that I have a friend and that you shouldn't look for me if there's nothing? Now that you're looking for me, you must need me to pass a message to her." Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2450. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yiji's words made sense. She had told him not to look for her if there was nothing important, and Yuan Xing had agreed. And how long had it been? Not even 2 hours had passed. Yuan Xing had appeared at her place again. Yiji naturally understood that Yuan Xing had come to look for her because he had something to discuss. Yiji's words made Yuan Lin's eyes darken. His face under the ghost mask stiffened a little. This. Yuan Xing felt embarrassed. Seeing that Yiji was asking for a letter, he waved his hand and a hairpin with 2 eyes appeared in his hand. "Wow, this hairpin is beautiful. Is this for Yunjian Jie?" Yiji asked after taking the hair clip from Yuan Xing and studying it. Yuan Xing did not respond. "Sister Yunjian will definitely like it. I will pass it to her," Yiji said solemnly. This caused the words that Yuan Lin was about to say to stop in his tracks. "This is so infuriating. What kind of people are they? And that little bitch Shermifan. Wasn't it my sister Lu who carried you up? Why don't you take a look at how you became an international best actress? How dare you talk to me like that? You deserve to be sent to the hospital by that new actor Luo Yi." A loud and sharp female voice rang out. Hearing this, Yiji was scared for a moment. She was not afraid in front of Yuan Xing, but in front of others, she could not suppress the fear that came from the depths of her soul. "Hurry up and hide here." Yiji pulled Yuan Xing to the bottom of the stairs and let his tall figure squat there. Then she took the hairpin and hid it under her blanket. She ran to the mirror, grabbed a handful of black charcoal, and smeared it on her face. After smearing the charcoal on her face, Yiji retreated to her small bedroom, which was under the stairs. At this moment, the door opened and a fat Sister Lu walked in with a face full of hatred. As she walked in, she cursed, "You heartless thing! I don't know who sent you to your current position before you became famous." As he spoke, he slammed the door shut with a bang, and slammed his backpack on the table. "Yiji! Damn Yiji, you brat, come out!" Sister Lu slammed her backpack on the table and yelled. This shout scared Yiji so much that her body trembled. However, Yates still walked out from the bottom of the stairs shakily. She still couldn't control her fear of people. It was probably because she was originally Yun Jian's puppet. After the person who created her, he couldn't make her look exactly like a human. Yates also had a fatal weakness: fear, cowardice, and terror. As long as she was facing someone who was a little fierce, Yiji would feel afraid. "You damned girl. Why are you dawdling? Come over here." Sister Lu grabbed Yiji's ear and dragged her over. Yeji, on the other hand, was so scared that she covered her head. Usually, Yuan Xing would just stand in the corner and watch Yiji get beaten up. To Yuan Xin, Yiji was an insignificant person, a pitiful puppet that had nothing to do with him. For someone of his status, it was beneath his dignity to help. Today, as usual, Sister Lu was in a bad mood. She grabbed her backpack and wanted to hit Yiji to vent her anger. Yiji closed her eyes and trembled in fear. However, just as Sister Lu's backpack was about to hit Yiji, a figure suddenly appeared. This person grabbed the backpack in Sister Lu's hand and forcefully dragged Sister Lu and the backpack to the side. After a long time, Yiji didn't feel any pain. She looked up in shock and saw a ghost mask. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2451. It had been 4 years since Yi Ji had met Yuan Xian. When Yi Ji was still Qin Yiru's daughter, she was dragged into the toilet and beaten up by Lin Mingyu and the others. She had no desire to live and died from anger before reincarnating into this body. It had been at least 4 years. When Yi Ji reincarnated into this body, she already knew Yuan Xian. Since then, Yi Ji would tell Yuan Xian everything that was bothering her, and Yuan Xian never cared about it. Yuan Xian was an immortal cultivator and not an earthling. That was true. Yi Ji knew that too. Yi Ji also knew that Yuan Xian came to Earth for the Sorcerer God and the Lord of Gods. Yuan Xian's identity was at the pinnacle of the immortal cultivator's world. As for his true identity, Yuan Xian had never told her. She and he were like clouds floating in the sky and mud being trampled on by others. He was revered by tens of thousands of people while she was just a puppet. It was an incomplete puppet that had been created by someone else. Her birth was a mistake. In the past 4 years, Yuan Xian had never saved her when she was bullied. At most, he would ask after she was beaten up, "Are you okay?" Hence, Yi Ji never expected Yuan Xian to save her. Yi Ji was prepared to be beaten up by Sister Lu. She was so scared that she didn't dare to watch Sister Lu beat her up. But when she opened her eyes and saw Yuan Xian's face instead of Sister Lu's beating, Yi Ji was stunned. After Sister Lu was forcefully dragged to the side by Yuan Xing, she was knocked unconscious on the spot. Yi Ji stood up and looked at the scene in front of her in a daze. She only reacted after a while and said to Yuan Xian, Thank you." Sharia 5-star Hotel. Inside the private room. Milan and the other big investors had yet to leave the room. "I wonder how Brother Galvin is doing now. Hee. Isn't that tender girl fun? I'm going to keep one someday." An investor said in a lewd voice. "If you need one, I'll get one for you immediately." Milland laughed and said boldly, "Okay, thank you, Brother Milland." The investor didn't hold back and said immediately. In their words, the girl wasn't human. That was just a tool used for trading. But before the investor could finish his words, a few sword lights flashed. Other than Mylander, the other investors beside him, including the one who had spoken with a lewd voice earlier, all fell to the ground. Milland's face changed when he saw this. He stood up decisively. A group of people rushed in from the door. They were very skilled and coordinated with the leader, a woman who looked like she was in her teens, to subdue Milland. Not long after, a beautiful girl walked in from outside the room. Following behind the girl were the members of the 3 special teams. The ones who led the charge were Tanuki and a team of assassins whom Yun Jian had sent here early in the morning. Yun Jian and the members of the 3 special teams came in later. After subduing Milland, Yun Jian crossed her arms and walked over. She looked at Milland and curled her lips. "Mr. Milland, how have you been?" "What do you mean?" Mr. Milland's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. "You are the mastermind of drug trafficking in the entertainment industry." Lu Yu looked at Milland and said fiercely. Milland's face suddenly changed when he saw that his conspiracy was seen through. He suddenly looked at Yun Jian and said, "So you saw through it, haha. But it doesn't matter. Please remember the domain name of this book. .com. Wonderful Bookhouse. Chapter 2452. Page 1/1. Milland had been subdued by the raccoon and was tied to a stool beside the dining table in the private room. The investors who had spoken to Milland earlier were all lying on the floor. No one knew if they were dead or alive. Although Milland was tied to a stool, he looked at Yun Jian fearlessly as if he had caught Yun Jian's weakness. Obviously, Milland thought that Ce was Yun Jian's sugar baby, and that Yun Jian had secretly given birth to the 2 children. Since Milland dared to say that, it meant that Milland must have sent his men to capture Ce and the 2 children. Moreover, judging by Milland's aggressive manner, he was confident that Ce and the 2 children would be captured by his men. One had to know that if someone had a hold on one's weakness, that would be the most fatal weakness for an undercover spy. Milland smiled as if everything was under his control. "You have children?" After Milland finished speaking, Lu Yu was the first to react. He glared at Yun Jian and exclaimed. If it had been something else, Lu Yu would probably have pretended to be a gentlemanly young master and criticized Yun Jian in a very personal manner. However, Yun Jian already had children. And there were 2 of them. The news was so shocking that not only was Lu Yu stunned, but even the members of T-Rex Squad, most powerful squad, and the 6 members of Team Monarch were dumbfounded. Wow! You have children. I was wondering where you've been for the past year. You must have gone to give birth to children. Chu Xiongnan was the first to react as he laughed at Yun Jian. Congratulations. Lu Shiyun nodded at Yun Jian calmly. Wow! It's a baby. Yun Jian, once this mission is over, you have to let me pinch your child's cheeks immediately. I want to know if a baby's skin is really as they say, that you can pinch water out of it. Chu Ning exclaimed at Yun Jian. Not bad. Jiang Weiwei winked at Yun Jian. Feng Xiaoran and Hong Fan from Team Monarch congratulated Yun Jian on the spot. Milland was speechless. If her teammates heard this, shouldn't they be scolding her on the spot for bringing her gigolo and child to Country M and interfering with this mission? What was going on? Milland was dumbfounded. Naturally, Team Monarch was aware of Siyi's identity. However, the members of the Tyrannosaurus Squad and the Most Awesome Squad did not know about this. Azura, how could you make such a low-level mistake? I don't care if you've given birth to a child or kept a man as a mistress. It's all thanks to you that we were able to catch the person we wanted so quickly. But you actually brought a burden here. You really? Do you know that what we're most afraid of is being caught red-handed? You'll kill your man and child. And I've tolerated you for a long time. You've just joined the cast and you've already shown off your abilities. You can't wait to let everyone know your capabilities and identity. And now, you're here to mess things up, aren't you? I'll definitely report this to Chief Lu and ask him to kick you out of the Advanced Special Forces Squad. A girl named Huang Meiling from the Most Awesome Squad used to be very quiet. This time, she finally lost her cool and yelled at Yun Jian. Is she really a member of the Special Forces Squad? Is she treating this mission as a game? However, just as Huang Meiling finished her words, Milland breathed a sigh of relief. Once again, he thought that he had caught Yun Jian red-handed. The door of the semi-mysterious room was kicked open by a slender leg. A handsome figure broke through the door. The owner of the figure was carrying a child in each hand. His sharp eyes scanned the room and said coldly, "A mere trashy director from Country M's entertainment industry dares to send someone to kill my child. From today onwards, all the upper-class people who have worked with you, Milland, will be included in an Hun's must-kill list. Leave no one alive." Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2453. Page 1/1. The visitor was none other than C.E. It had only been a short while but Milland had already sent his men to capture C.E. and the children. Especially for the 2 children, Miran had no intention of letting them live. He had sent his men to knock them out first. They were only 5.5 months old. Babies were not fully developed yet. The drug was injected into the air in an attempt to knock out C.E. and the children. Of course, the children could not withstand it. At this moment, he had already fainted. They were nestled in C.E.'s arms. The children were only 5.5 months old. Although C.E. had discovered the source of the drug just by inhaling a little, they were still children after all. They would still be affected. C.E. usually carried and grabbed the children but C.E. would never allow anyone to lay a finger on them. Although the children were usually a hindrance to him and Xiao Jian's intimacy, their existence was proof of their love for each other. Even if this point was ignored, the 2 little fellows were still indispensable existences. How dare they lay a finger on his children? Brother E is here. I knew it. How can our Yun Jian be threatened when someone as capable as Brother E is? Chu Xiongnan chuckled when he saw C.E. and even picked his teeth in a leisurely manner right in front of Director Milland, who was dumbfounded, provoking him. After that, Chu Xiongnan went to C.E. with a chuckle and patted Chu Ning. Both of them went to carry the children who were sound asleep in C.E.'s arms. C.E. was no stranger to Chu Ning and Chu Xiongnan. After the children were carried away by Chu Ning and Chu Xiongnan, C.E.'s cold gaze was fixed on Milland, who was in the private room. Yun Jian's gaze flickered when she saw the children being knocked out by Milland's men. In the next second, Yun Jian pulled out a pistol from her waist and twirled it around before aiming it at Milland's thigh. Without hesitation, she fired a shot at Milland's thigh. This shot is for you. You're about to go to hell for touching my children and crossing my bottom line. The shot hit Milland's meridian in his thigh and crippled Milland's thigh. After the shot landed, Milland, who had yet to react to C.E.'s statement that all the upper-class people who were working with him were listed on an Hun's must-kill list, screamed loudly. Because his limbs were tied up, Milland couldn't even hug his thigh and roll around in pain. In less than half a minute, Milland's forehead was drenched in sweat from the excruciating pain. "You're the killing gods, man. What does it mean to be listed on an Hun's must-kill list? Do you know someone from an Hun?" Huang Meiling, the woman who had accused Yun Jian just now, asked with a frown as she looked at Ce. Huang Meiling asked the question that was on everyone's mind. However, Ce ignored her. "Young master." A handsome man walked in from outside the door. He walked to Ce expressionlessly with a gunny sack in his hand. "The person who came was Mo Sr. "Open it," Ce said coldly. The gunny sack was opened, and a corpse was thrown out. Milland's face turned pale when he saw the corpse. He screamed in shock. "Gu Li! Gu Li! You actually killed Gu Li! Who are you? Who are you?" Gu Li was the boss of Country M's underground black market. At the same time, he was Milland's biggest business partner. The two of them existed side by side. The reason why Milland dared to openly abduct young girls into the entertainment industry and sell drugs was because he had Gu Li behind him. But how long had it been? This man actually sent someone to kill the boss of Country M's underground black market. Who was he? Wasn't he just a gigolo? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2454. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Gu Li was the boss of Country M's underground black market. Gu Li's identity and status was not as simple as being the boss of Country M's underground black market. Gu Li's brother-in-law was an international top firearms tycoon. The strength and influence of his subordinates was one of the best even in the world's underground black market. Milland had Gu Li as his backer, and that was his capital. That was why Milland dared to smuggle drugs and do all kinds of bad things in Country M's entertainment circle. Milland's biggest backer was Gu Li. Without Gu Li, he was nothing. As for Gu Li, his backer was his brother-in-law, who was even more powerful than Gu Li. The top firearms tycoon, Kenmi. Kenmi was Milland's and Gu Li's biggest backer. But Gu Li was protected by Kenmi. In other words, it was almost impossible to kill Gu Li. Even on the international assassin list, there were not many people who had the confidence to kill Gu Li. Not to mention, in just a few hours, they killed Gu Li's body and brought it here. "Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you?" Milland even forgot the pain of his thigh being shot. He frantically shouted at Ce. His eyes widened almost at the same time. "But if I'm not wrong, your mother, Mrs. Fanny, started out as an actress in the entertainment circle." Just when everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them, Yun Jian's voice suddenly sounded. The moment he heard Yun Jian's voice, Milland was like a deflated balloon. His whole body was paralyzed in an instant. Gu Li was dead, and his backer was completely gone. Even if he was not caught by the police, he no longer had the motivation to continue living. About your mother, Mrs. Fanny's background, although it was completely blocked in the international circle 20 years ago, outsiders could no longer find out anything about your mother, Mrs. Fanny's past. But unfortunately, I know your mother, Mrs. Fanny's past. Mrs. Fanny used to be a girl with dreams. She also entered the entertainment circle and relied on her own ability to become an international movie queen. But unfortunately, she was led astray by an investor who was also a drug dealer in the entertainment circle like you. After that, she took drugs, was forced to prostitute, and finally, she was caught by an assassin organization. Mrs. Fanny was forced to become an assassin. But unlike other assassins, Mrs. Fanny had the potential to become an assassin. After she became an assassin, she tried her best to control her drug addiction. Fanny, she met your father by accident. They fell in love and she gave birth to you. However, when she thought she was Miss Fanny, she was the investor who brought her into the entertainment circle. She was the investor who brought Fanny and was the investor. Fanny translation. Her Fanny was Fanny translation Fanny translation translation. The news that was released to the outside world was all fabricated by someone in the later stages. And the reason why you followed the example of the investor who harmed your mother and sold drugs in the entertainment circle was because you were unwilling to let your mother be harmed. That investor was eventually arrested by the police. You were unwilling to accept that all the bad things in the world had been suffered by your mother alone. Why should other girls in the entertainment circle be able to survive in the entertainment circle with their own abilities while your mother had to suffer all this? So, you followed that person's example and sold drugs in the entertainment circle just to let thousands of girls experience the pain your mother suffered back then. You were just satisfying your own selfish desires. You were unwilling to accept your tragic childhood and used your own way to take revenge on society. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2455. This was the truth. The reason why Milland sold drugs crazily in the entertainment industry, other than to earn money, was more to satisfy his own selfish desires. To be honest, with Milland's status, what did he not have? He had once directed a movie that broke the world's highest box office record. He did not lack money. He knew the boss of the underground black market, Gu Li, completely based on his own ability. He did not lack power either. Milland only wanted to satisfy his own selfish desires. He felt that his mother's life was miserable because she entered the entertainment industry. Why was his mother dead? And why was the investor who had once harmed her arrested? Milland refused to accept it. He wanted to let all the girls who had dreams and wanted to enter the entertainment industry know that their dreams could go to hell. Milland did not have a mother since he was young. His mentality was psychopathic. Yun Jian's words entered the ears of everyone present. After hearing Yun Jian's words, everyone was stunned. How did you know? How did you know? Milland had been completely paralyzed just now. Now that he heard Yun Jian's words, he suddenly raised his eyes again and stared at Yun Jian. The greatest pain in the depths of his memory was exposed. Milland did not hide it anymore. He laughed out loud. That's right, that's right. Why did my mother deserve to die? Why didn't I have a mother's love since I was young? Ha ha ha. I want them to experience what my mother went through. I want them to know that there is no such thing as a lucky thing in this world. What instant fame? What accidental fame? They all have to pay a price. Ha ha ha. As Milland laughed, a string of tears flowed down from the corner of his hideous eyes. Milland was pitiful, but a pitiful person must have a hateful side. No one could innocently trample on a teenager with dreams just to satisfy their own selfish desires. It was necessary to be vigilant. Drugs would ruin one's life. No matter how strong a person was, once they took a mouthful of drugs, they would be doomed eternally. No one could break this law, so everything had to be done with caution. You should never eat the food given to you by others, because there is no free lunch in this world. Most of the strangers who give you free lunch have ulterior motives. Milland was completely arrested by the police. Naturally, as an accomplice, Gorwin could not escape the punishment of the law. After Milland and Galvin were arrested, Yun Jian did not even wait to see T-Rex Squad and Most Awesome Squad's expressions, nor did she have time to meet Officer Liu. She carried the children and returned to Country Z's Longmen City with CE. The little girl and the little fellow had been drugged for a period of time. They were fine, but Yun Jian still looked after them herself, for fear that something would go wrong. It was not until 3 days later that the little girl and the little fellow returned to normal. As soon as the two little guys returned to normal, the little girl kicked CE in the face. In spite of it, CE's eyes were filled with love. On this day, Qin Yiru brought the little girl and the little fellow out. There were only CE and Yun Jian in the house. Yun Jian stood by the window. Just as she watched Qin Yiru bring the two little fellows out, she pulled the curtains down. CE, on the other hand, was flipping through a weapon book in his hand. Just as CE was reading the book in his hand peacefully, he suddenly felt a figure pouncing on him and pressing him down on the bed. Yun Jian sat on CE's lap and tugged at his belt without saying a word. If you want to talk about Campus Rebirth, the strongest female secret agent with more like-minded people, please follow us on WeChat. Chat about life, find a confidant.